Oh my goodness. Wow.
He might call.
Wow. Welcome, everyone. We are here for a stacked final table. We got the man, the myth, an absolute true legend, 38 million in lifetime earnings. I always have trouble with his name. We're going to go for it, though. Nick Petrangelo in the building. Nick, how are you?
We're perfect, man. Yeah, you did great.
Thank you, man. Great to have you, brother.
Happy to be here.
Great to have you. You had so much success in tournaments. We're going to look at your profile. If you're not aware of Nick, he just hit a massive score to end the I guess it was in WPT, I believe, but it was a 7-figure score main event. We're going to talk about that later today. Today, some guys you've battled with for sure at this final table. I think there's a lot of household names here. People may be aware of them live and online, but Nick, we're going to get your insight on that. Let's take a look at last winner from last week first, where I believe it was ElkY. This is from a couple weeks ago. We had a little break for the WSOP special events. This is a guy who's on fire. Over 2 million in GG earnings, 1 million of that coming in the millions. And we see with back-to-back final tables and back-to-back wins. Matter of fact, played Dominic Nietzsche heads up both those weeks. Pretty unusual for that type of size field for that to happen. That was pretty crazy. And I'm sure you've battled with Dominique a lot. So let's take a look at the winning hand from that. Have you how much have you played with Dominic over the years?
A lot. I mean, especially when I first started playing high rollers, quite often, around through 2012 up until like 2018, I was playing with him pretty much every stop. Not so much in the last few years. I think he's focusing on other stuff and playing a lot more online and less live, but for sure, a ton of reps with Dominic, and he was always a great player. And looks like, I know also, he had a lot of success recently with some online results as well. And if he's back-to-back weeks in this one, it sounds like he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, back-to-back heads up. Did lose to the same guy twice. I mean, again, here we see a flip. Would have been 2-1 lead in chips, and obviously heads up poker. Yeah. A lot can happen there. So pretty standard spot. Ace 9 and 4s, big hands off those stack depths. Not much to talk about there. Just a flip that goes to the ElkY 9-9. So that was your champion 2 weeks in a row. Something to be said about some momentum. Feeling good, dialed in, and he has got 2 wins under his belt in back-to-back hands. Well, let's dive in and take a look at the all-time leader board here. The ranking, you can see one player. What about Victor Melanovsky? How much experience do you have with him? Someone who plays more cash, but actually has a very impressive tournament resume. Have you played with him a lot?
Yeah, you know what? I have some interesting experience with him, not only live. When he plays live, it's mostly the Tritons. So yep. I have played a ton of live poker with him just because he plays all the high rollers. But also during COVID, there was a really big cash game running that I was playing on a daily basis where he started out kind of crushing and posting pictures of those $2 million stacks. And he was, cold 4-betting 7 deuce when we weren't playing 7 deuce. It was just a 6 max game. It was a 500 1K and sometimes 500 1K, 2K online game. So I played with him a lot in the summer during COVID that year when it was running for like 3 months. And he was certainly interesting and really tough opponent. And obviously is a ton of reps playing heads up, different games. Yeah, he's a great player, and he certainly has his own sort of system that he's figured out how to make it work, and he's really good at just putting people in tough spots in those deep cash games.
Yeah, someone that, again, playing both cash and tournaments, and actually a really kind of crazy resume here on GGMillion. You can see he's had 53 cashes, 34 of those being final tables, and 5 titles. Going for his 6 would jump him up on that list up there. So yeah, well, he's the only one from this list today, but some other massive players, massive names, massive skill set here. So let's take a look at our final table. Let's see who we have got in the prize pool. Of course, 339 to first. Nice to get $250,000, top 2 over $250,000. Everyone guaranteed about 5 buy-ins, 9 left. We're gonna pick your brain about some ICM and sort of how these payouts are. How do you approach that versus some other structures? I mean, this is a little more, less aggressive jumps, but still, obviously ICM always during this portion of the tournament is the most important. So we'll talk about that, and then let's take a look at our 9th place player today. We have our man Rui, who you've probably played a lot with too. This guy's been around forever, online legend, live, kind of does it all. Very impressive resume here. 13 million, that's in GGPoker alone. Almost 3 million of those coming from this format of GGMillion. And you can see 14 blinds, a little bit short on the chip count, but still 14 blinds, plenty to play with. What's your experience with Rui?
Yeah, Ruin F. You know, like before I started playing live, I was a full-time online player at all stakes, and Rui was doing the same thing. So over the years, I've ton of probably played thousands and thousands of tournaments with him, and obviously other Brazilians as well that he's close with. So and he's played a lot of EPTs. He just goes some Tritons. So yeah, I mean, I've been playing with him for over 10 years for sure, I think. And when I played a lot on GG, he was always there. So great player. I just did review. I know he made that huge final table where first was like 5 million. Ike and I and Leon Sturm did a webinar on that one for GTO Lab, and he was there. So I actually reviewed some of his play quite recently. And yeah, he's really tough and sharp.
Yeah, something that jumps out, no wins, 13 final tables, just shows you how hard it is to win in sports and poker to actually get the win. And of course, for the lion's share, there's a lot of variance, and you just don't know. You could have 7 nights in 3 seconds. We don't really know. Hopefully, he can get it going and put himself in position to win, rocking the Brazil flag. Although hailing from Portugal, you can see on the all-time money list for. So let's take a look at 8th place today. A name that, again, someone that there's a lot of people have seen the players multiple times. 2 wins here. I think maybe one of those was not when we had a show on a week, but he does have 2 wins, 11 final tables. Any experience here with Michaelitis?
No, this is a player I don't have any experience with. I might just be getting a little bit too old to have experience with everybody, so it's possible. I'm just all these OG guys like Rui and Victor and stuff, I got a lot of reps, but I don't think I've played much with this player at all.
Yeah, and again, sort of 2 million in lifetime earnings. They're Lithuania, the original country of origin, and some Triton experience. So anyone who's playing the 25K pluses, battling with Triton, gonna have some experience. And a guy I'm a little less familiar with myself. I don't know if we've ever played live, but I can see has been on here, 79 appearances in GGMillions. Let's take a look at number 7 today, our 7th place stack. This guy, I know you played a lot with him. I played a lot with him, and he just picked up a nice 1.9 million, if I'm not mistaken. It was a week off, so the week before, where it was a bracelet event. He has kind of done it all, and his all his earnings actually, it looks like, are from GGMillions, which is actually, I'm not sure if that's right, because that seems kind of crazy, right? That he's never played any other GG event, but anyway, 4 million in GG earnings, and a guy that has some crazy amount of live earnings. How much have you played with Sergio?
Yeah, a ton. Same as like we already talked about a few other guys. Sergio was always playing. I mean, we came up in very similar time and putting in a ton of volume online at the same time. So we were grinding against each other at all stakes and kind of rose up, had similar trajectory through live high rollers as well. So I think we would both agree we played against each other a ton, and he's remained very sharp and involved throughout the years, staying kind of current and a big winner. And I believe he had a great year live as well last year, if not for longer than a 12-month period. I know that he did really well over the World Series this summer, and yeah, he's just kind of a staple at every high stakes buy-in.
Yeah, he did actually win the 50K high roller for a bracelet for 2 million. So that's one of the ones you're referencing. And just to put in perspective, he's second with 21 million all-time earnings for Spain live. The first place, none other than Adrian Mateos, who just crossed the $50 million marker on the dot, basically hit it to the tee. So that's pretty impressive there. The 2 guys I know are close friends and play a lot of poker. Tough opponents there for sure. So let's go to our next player. He has 26 big blinds. Our next player today is Sven Anderson, who I'm not as familiar with, but you can see impressive with GG, 5.555 million, 1 win, and a lot of appearances here. How about him? Any experience live with Sven?
Yeah, so all of experience with him would be from playing a lot of GG tournaments during COVID. During the time I mentioned, I was playing the cash game as well. Playing, anywhere from 5Ks to 25Ks. He was putting in a lot of volume at that time, so I would have had a lot of experience in this exact tournament versus him. And then I do believe I've seen him here and there at EPTs and starting to play a little bit higher, some 25K live events and stuff like that. So yeah, I think, most of my reps have come from GG 10Ks and 25Ks with him.
Very cool. And you can see an interesting stat there, 40-time satellite winner to the GGMillion. I believe those are mostly 1Ks. Of course, there could be some other 500s or others, but yeah, there you go. That is a lot. I don't think I've ever seen quite a number like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, we're talking 4 million in satellite earnings there. That's I believe. Is that right? Or 400? What are we talking? Yeah, 10. That's a lot. And who knows how many he's entered, but pretty impressive there. And he does have a win under his belt. Let's take a look at our next player today. We are going to be looking at some hands from the top stacks as well. And this name, I believe, Catch Chew, if we're saying right, 6.5 million, 7 final tables. Also hasn't got a win. Any experience here battling live? I know he has an impressive 1K Eureka win for over 500,000 live. I saw that. I'm not sure what else he's been playing, but that is.
I have experience playing with the guy in his avatar, Leonard, but I don't have any experience with this specific player, no, or not much at all. But if he's got Leonard as his avatar, and we're going to assume that he's buddies with him or something like that, then yeah, maybe we can glean a little bit of info, because I've played a lot with Leonard and talked to him a lot. But no, don't know much about this player.
Okay, well, he did win the WSOP Online bracelet there, $3,000 no limit hold'em winner. That is a nice pickup and in good form, it appears. Let's go to our next opponent, the player, the competitor today. There he is. That we talked about at the beginning there. He was the one on the list, 9th on the GGMillion all-time money list. You already kind of covered that. 5 wins in this format, 35 final tables. Pretty impressive in the money. I mean, 169 appearances. That is a lot of Sundays. That's over 3 years of Sundays, because that's not re-entry. So that is a good amount of experience in this, and definitely someone you can't overlook to be a favorite today with the experience to close out here. We'll see more of his game. Got the custom avatar, and he is he does a little bit of everything. So that's gonna be interesting. As you said, puts people in tough positions, not afraid to go for it, and just sort of has a wide range of ability in this. So we'll take a look at how he fares today. All right, let's get to our next opponent. The player today that is going to be Pavel, someone that I've seen a lot of. I just seem like he seems like he's got all the moves. He's kind of like, he'll think you're tight, and then he just kind of shows you some crazy random aggression, just really dialed in. Finally got the win, 16 final tables, 1 win, and someone that has a ton of live results, ton of big scores and sort of main events over the years. Someone I always see when I play with him, I always know he's just very, very tough. And you can see he won the 10,300 Saturday Secret winner online and over 10 million in GGMillions. How much you battled with him over the years?
Yep, yeah, of course. 3P Nippa. I don't know how you say it, but yeah, again, a guy I played a ton of online reps against back in the day, and then when most of the volume moved to GG, that didn't change. I played, early in my career, I had some experience, or not early, but in one of my earlier times playing high live was like 2016. We both played the same final table in Barcelona at 10K. That was really the first time I had a really high stakes final table with him, but yeah, he's a great player, and he seems to do a great job of playing. In my opinion, when I think of someone like him, he does a really great job of playing all stakes with equal intensity, and he's always kind of hanging around in those big mains, and he's always a threat in something like that, compared to maybe some other players that doesn't really stick out to you. But I think he's always somebody I'd pick in a big main event, like EPT or something, to make a deep run for sure.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. Some of his wins are crazy, like the 5K, 10K mains, just super. He takes them down or is at the final table. So we'll see how he fares. He does have a win here. And again, a player who definitely knows his way around the final table. As we're going to take a look, since he is one of the top stacks, we'll look at one of the hands here, ace-9 of diamonds in the big blind, pretty early-ish in the tournament. You can see the blinds are 8-16, and the nice, decent hand in the big blind. We're 6-handed, and let's see who is going to compete with him here. This is, yeah, I'd say I'm not sure what stage. That's the one thing about the highlight hands. It doesn't give you the exact info in the tournament. You can kind of see based on the stack size and blind level, but looks like there's still some meat on this. The earlier on in the tournament there, a couple of Brazilians. Who would you say, country-wise, who are some of the most impressive that you see players that, or would you give a stereotype for a country that's been turning it on lately?
There's certainly a lot of new players from a lot of different countries. Obviously, I'm biased. I think the North Americans are very strong. Lithuania is starting to make their presence known at all the high stakes, that's for sure. Kind of led by Hanakovs, who's a great player and really tricky to play against. There's a lot of new younger players that are playing really tough, obviously. And then, like you already mentioned, it's hard to deny Spain when Adrian and Sergio alone have like 100 million in earnings or whatever it is. It's something crazy, right? So there's just a lot. I mean, it's just changed where the entire composition of the field is so much stronger than it used to be, and there's so many more great regulars. It's a hard question to answer because it's kind of like everyone that's playing that's a regular is great,
Yeah, tell me about this hand. Ace-9 suited defend, check raise, jack Jack 10, 2 diamonds. I mean, kind of interesting because could have the best hand, does have the nut draw, and does check raise, and then puts them all in.
My initial reaction is just that if I was going to be really aggressive, it'd be a little bit with a little bit of a worse flush draw or a lower card. Typically, it depends what Rodrigo's doing pre-flop. I don't know how much ICM is here, but you know, typically you'd see that the ace 9 be doing okay versus c-bet range if Rodrigo started opening some 9x himself or whatever the case may be. But obviously with a nut flush draw and some backup, you have some additional straight interaction on the potential turns, then you'd be in a spot where, you know, you can't go wrong, kind of, because the hand is so strong. I would have probably seen myself play a good chunk more check call on the flop, just because, like I said, like the nut flush draw with a 9 seems like a really strong hand to just check call, but obviously it'll get in there sometimes for raising, I think. And if you have like the ace 2 of diamonds, it's quite different in my opinion, because you target a little bit more folds with that specific combo that you're generating some. Yeah, so, but yeah, it looks good. And
that could be a good hand for GTO Lab to look at, right? You guys do some review after some of these now, and it's interesting, all those points, and again, when great players do stuff that doesn't line up directly with the way you for yourself, I think that's always cool to look at and try to see like what they're doing and how that interacts with the solver, if you will. So, all right, cool hand. Next hand. Let's go to our next player. We're going to see a hand. This guy also, one of the guys who's just been around forever, just a grinder, just feels like, you know, hits his cold plunge, does his workout, not giving anything away in the morning. And you've played with him a ton, I'm sure. 16 million in earnings and 0 wins, 20 final tables, and one of the big stacks. They got to be one of the favorites to take it down in 145 appearances. Give me a little nugget on him before we actually, let's cue the hand. Cue the hand. Let's see the hand that the key hand, 81 big blinds, and I'll let you tell me a little bit about Josh. So go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, he's the same thing like what I've kind of been saying about a lot of these guys. So he played so much volume, so much more volume than me online. He was an incredibly hard worker. Kind of back in the day, the type of guy that seemed like he was just getting a lot better every day by playing a ton of volume and understanding what the population is doing. And then now still quite strong in high rollers. And yeah, I mean, just really high volume, hardworking player throughout his career. And he's always kind of been there. So yeah, you know, I think too, with the things that were really important fundamentally online, he was quite early to get very good at them.
Yep, and Brazil, one of the stronger countries, again with GG. Sometimes again, it's country of origin and residence and can vary, but there are four Brazilian flags at this table in the 10K. I'd say Brazil is one of the emerging stronger countries and some of the better players that are, you know, kind of coming up out of the woodwork. But of course, João is actually from Portugal, so that's not a little misleading, but he again has a super impressive live resume, almost 10 million in earnings, and he is the #1 all-time money list for Portugal. So he's going to open ace-6 off. Tell me, you know, this seems with this skill level of a tournament, you got Victor in the big blind, you got Sergio on a jam stack, couple of shove stacks. This seems a little bit wide. What's his going through his mind here?
No, I mean, we would assume here when we're seeing great player open something like this that you're either approaching the bubble. Like you said, I don't know what the stage of the tournament is, but obviously if it's 30K big blind, you're either in the money or you're approaching the bubble. There's a few tables left. And so what happens here, especially with Sergio's stack and Ace, Steakillus's stack, and the small blind stack, you get really high card heavy. So you want to have like high card equity or blockers as opposed to playability with your range, because you don't get flatted very often, right? Like Sergio is not supposed to play fast. So you're more prioritizing blocking hands that put money in for value or for bluffs that have a high card themselves. So you'll see stuff like maybe even in some cases every single ace might open if you have enough pressure. And like you said, yes, Victor's in the big blind. What you're going to do is you're going to min raise. You're going to try to get through the short and medium stacks right behind you. And then you're going to be like, okay, I'll play like a small kind of passive pot versus the other big stack. And I do have this high card heavy opening range that can flop like a strong top pair with ace X or middle pair with a king X or whatever, and just play a small pot and go to showdown. Now, in this exact example, he does kind of end up with a pretty nice combo to play a big pot on the turn for some clearance, because we would be thinking about the fact that Victor probably pure defends and does nothing else with stuff like 9-10 or Jack-10 or potentially even like a King-10 of spades. So now, even though we would have the best hand versus hands like that, our two cards happen to be really good to kind of not have any removal properties against that folding range, and we'll be able to barrel on certain rivers pretty cleanly, kind of having that it's not a huge deal, but you know, having this 6 when 6-7 and 5-6 are straight draws is a concept that's important. And having the ace here, so now we're gonna have, I didn't even know this was gonna be the river, but this is perfect. We're gonna have blockers to ace-2, 6-7, and now everything in Victor's range can be becoming different. That's not like 2-pair basically, you know, like for chips or whatever, if he has a king queen, it's obviously just gonna like tie for value probably and be a pure call or close to it and good bluff catcher. But now when he's in, again, we don't know the ICM scenario, but everything is gonna force, he's gonna force him to be indifferent with everything. And now it'll get tricky where stuff like, you know, ace-8 or a 6-8 suited or something like that would be like a really nice bluff catcher for Victor, because it's gonna have a straight blocker and a set blocker and a 2-pair. And then his queen 10, queen 9, stuff like that is in a really tough spot. So yeah, this one kind of shapes out nicely, but I think the most important thing to recognize is that the way the range is designed for Zhao and the way it's gonna play post flop, it's not like, even if it's a bubble or a high pressure situation, he's really looking to like get Victor all in post flop every time. I think that's a big misconception. Generally, you'll see a lot more passivity, but the way that board ran out with Zhao's hand specifically, it kind of ended up, it aligned perfectly for him to have a 3-barrel a good chunk of the time there. Especially not having any of the backdoors with his ace on the flop. He's gonna fold out stuff like ace-10 of diamonds on the turn. It just ended up being kind of a perfect combo, and he executed it perfectly as well.
Yeah, cool hand. And what about, so how likely is Zhao to have like 6-7 suited because of that, the short stacks? You said you want to be in this spot weighted more towards high cards, so is that, can he discount that? Or I guess the 6-7 suited, he's gonna open those combos, but
a lot of times what happens is, you know, if he needs playability versus the button, and he needs playability versus the big blind here when they both started quite deep, and he covered everybody. And again, I don't know the pressure scenario, but if this is a bubble or a high pressure in the money scenario, whatever the case may be, you'll see kind of both, right? You'll get to open more high cards than you normally do, but you'll also add that playability because you're going to get flatted by a button or the big blind. No one else in this hand is going to play flats, really. Like, again, I don't know what the situation is, but so you would have some of that suited stuff and also the high card stuff as well.
Okay, well, that is very, very interesting spot, as we did get a nice run out to illustrate what you were talking about here. This name not going to go, a little bit harder to tackle, but Vaskresensky, we'll go with that. He is a player that has 2.4 million, 3 final tables, no wins. So another player, 52 appearances, does put the time in here. GGMillion 662 in earnings. He also did win the WSOP online, the Bounty Hunter 5250. So again, some guys in really good form, picking up bracelets recently, and they find themselves here. So let's take a look at a hand from him, someone I'm not familiar with. I don't know if you've played with him. I don't recognize that name.
He also just won the 100K in the Super High Roller Bowl Cyprus, and he started playing Tritons last year with a group of, I don't know if they're all actually Belarusians or whatever, but they're all part of the same stable. I do actually know a good bit about him, and played with him a good chunk in Cyprus, and I expect him to do some aggressive, interesting stuff while we're watching today, because when I reviewed the streams from Cyprus Super High Roller Bowl, he was definitely in there really trying to make every play that he thought was worth a little bit of extra. Now, again, it's difficult when we don't, this is big blind 12K, right? So this is, depends on what the situation is, but it's not a great spot to have low pocket pairs when you've got the cutoff, small blind and big blind, all with rejam stack that you don't want to really call, except for the small blind probably. But again, I don't know. It's obviously fine. It's one of those ones that might be kind of getting dicey. Now here, again, I would expect when it opens and we get flatted by that in position player, that's going to be really condensed sort of around that. The queen is one of the cards that he's going to flop top pair the most with offsuit combos at call. Then we would be probably getting kind of passive here as Vaskresensky, because that board really connects with that flatting range, but he might be the type of player that he plays a little bit unbalanced in terms of like checking weak and betting strong on that board, which would be what this tells me now. And then once he gets raised, you know, I think that it's at a stacked to pot ratio where you are going to be able to get the money in versus every value hand and no matter what happens, because it's not like you're 200 BBs deep. So slow playing is probably the best option, although I could see maybe even another raise or something. But yeah, I would just always call. And then this is an interesting turn card where in position probably never has a 9 in that raise line as a human for sure. So the nine's definitely a brick for in position. Now we're trying to see, in positions bluffs. You'd have to be reaching pretty deep to have some hard to find bluffs, and the natural ones might be stuff that he doesn't even flat pre in this stack setup, like 10-8 suited or something like that. So I would think that this is more likely the case to be a cooler than it is to find in position bluffing.
He's gonna have what? He just have what? Do you go for king queen suited for value?
Yeah,
ace queen off.
Ace queen suited. Ace queen suited seems like an easy hand to call pre-flop, or potentially even ace queen off. He did have like over 30 big blinds, right?
Yeah.
He had 40. So I think his ace queen.
Oh wow.
A value hand like that. I don't know why he had kings, but I mean, with the shallow stacks, I don't know the situation in the tournament. That seems totally fine. But yeah, like I was saying, this is immediately on the flop. To me, the way that people actually play, it seems like in position is just going to have it way more often than they should, because the bluffs that are natural probably don't flat pre-flop, or even if they do, they probably don't take the raise spot enough. And also stuff like king 10, king jack is just easy to call in position, right? So I think that was likely a pretty unbalanced hand from the in position player, which is totally fine.
Awesome. All right, well, let's see. I think we may have one more hand too. Those are 3 of the top stacks. Let's see if we get one more hand. I believe we're gonna look at the betting odds today, so maybe that was it for the hands. And there it is, 3.72 to 1. The hand we just saw, a nice hand with threes. The chip leader Zhao with the 4.71. This is in-game, in-client app. The odds to win 28 to 1 for Rui. Looks kind of tempting. Guy with experience, 14 blinds for that price. Anything hop out here? We could do a little major, like a dinner wager. I'll let you pick first. We can alternate. Say we get 100 units. You can break it up into 3. You want to take a crack? Anyone here that appeals to you, or anything that looks like value?
I think I'm most excited to just what jumps out to me is that I didn't realize I'm excited to watch him play the chip lead, because he's an interesting player for sure. I'll take the long shot Sergio, I'll take the chip leader, and I'll take Victor.
Okay, we'll do it that way. I'll just let you. Yeah, you can do the 3. That's reasonable picks. You weren't just cherry picking the top 3. So
then you can get like second and third, and right.
Yeah. So I'll take Zhao, Pavel, and sorry, you took Sergio.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take Zhao, Pavel, and I'll go with Rui. We'll just do it that way. We'll go with that. We'll take the 3. So give me your 3 one more time.
Sergio, Vaskerensky, that's a tough one, and what I go with?
Victor, perfect. All right, we'll do it that way. We'll put a dinner on it. We'll have some fun. Those are the odds, and we are gonna be again playing to a winner today. There's no deal making at this final table. I think that is going to be the hands we reviewed. Pretty great analysis. Get a little preview in the next game. Again, GTO Lab, they do a review of the show. I don't know if you're doing that every week or most weeks, and that is something we'll be talking about on the show. But I know you guys break down some hands from here, which is really cool. Usually the day after.
Yeah, we've been doing webinars. I think the plan is to kind of add some variety and not always have the same final table review, and then we'll start having it on our site. But we're definitely going to have a big chunk of our site. We know that everyone loves to watch this tournament, so we're going to start, adding that to our site where we have the full reviews. So it's sort of like everyone watches it anyway, so why not do the review? And then we can use our software to just look up pretty much every spot, especially with the online payouts. We have the full library of that. So yeah, it works out great to use it for this tournament and any other tournament or spot for study or review or whatever the case. It's we have a really comprehensive library that has coverage of all these spots. So yeah, we'll have another webinar coming out real soon with some of us.
I love it. Well, listen, we're going to talk more about that. Of course, the very, very high player, high caliber site. We're going to very much appreciate you coming on here. This is a pleasure to get to talk to you, get to look inside of your game and your mind a bit more. We're going to come back after a short break. Invite everyone to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. There will be giveaways today, $50 and $100 ticket within the game today. So that'll be the first part of the giveaway, and then we'll see you guys back in 5 minutes. Welcome back. Here we go. It is Tuesday, October 15th. It is another GG Millions. We're playing to a winner. Jeff Gross alongside Nick Petrangelo. We are going to play it out for $339,000 at first. Everyone in the final table is guaranteed a nice, healthy payout. There it is, 1.67 in the prize pool. A little hangover from the World Series of Poker Online. We saw $4 million to first in one of the events here. 1.9 Sergio won just 2 weeks ago, and there is a look at that. About 5 buy-ins for ninth all the way up. Not really two dramatic payout jumps. What does anything stand out to you strategy-wise when you look at this payout structure here?
Yeah, usually the thing with the GG Millions and then a lot of different online tournaments is that the incremental pay jumps are identical. They might be like 30% all the way up or something like that. Whereas in a live tournament, you might see like 30, 40, 50 between first and second, or even 60 between first and second. All it means is basically that your appetite for risk increases when it's more top heavy, right? So what we see typically in these shallower payouts where everything is a consistent pay jump incrementally, you'll see it forces all players to be tighter, and maybe if there's a runaway chip leader or a big chip leader, it'll let them play a little bit more aggressively and lean on the fact that everyone's risk premiums are a little bit higher. Just another way of saying you're not getting rewarded or you're not incentivized to gamble.
Right. Well, I can tell you this, based on the mix of players and historically on here, although that may be the correct way to play, a lot of the guys here have some capes on, some heroes. We see some players here today, as you mentioned, some guys that like to mix it up in our chip leader, maybe with the 106 big blinds, someone who does that. So let's see how that plays out, and we're going to dive right in there. 14 blinds is our shortest stack, 106 the biggest, and everything in between. So first hand here, 9-handed. You see, again, the seating arrangements. Tell me about that feature in your mind. How big a deal is that with the chip leader getting to pick last seat in an order ascending? How does that make for a strategy? How big a deal do you think that is?
Yeah, it's a big deal. Just understand, obviously the two things that matter the most when you're evaluating an ICM situation are the stack distribution, which means literally shortest to biggest stack and how much chips does everyone have compared to average, right? But then the second one is where those stacks are, which we would call stack arrangement. So where the stacks are positioned dictate your opening strategies and your 3-bet strategies and everything like that, right? So typically here you saw, I would assume you saw the chip leader. He just takes the seat directly to the left of the second place player, which means that now Zhao can't open as much because he can get flatted in 3-bet a lot more because that risk premium for Zhao is really, really high. So that's a perfect example of you get to pick last. You just handcuffed the guy that's in second and stole a bunch of EV from him, as opposed to if Vaskerinsky were like, in Pavel's seat here and he folds, then Zhao becomes the ultimate chip leader for the rest of that hand. That's just going to happen less often with Vaskerinsky right on his direct left, right? So
yep.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's not as big of a deal for short and mid stacks, but it's, yeah.
Right. Is it because so that seems pretty obvious. If you're the chip leader, just choose the seat to the direct left of the next one, or I mean, if it depends, obviously, if there's close some of the stacks. But what about for the middle stacks? Is there any strategy or the original picker? Is there anything you can do to, or is it sort of you don't really have much to control at that point because people are picking around you?
The mid stacks, you obviously want to be, if you could be next to another mid stack like Victor and Cachuar, that's pretty good because you can play a little bit more passively against each other, and you're not going to be in an extreme scenario where you have to play your small blind versus chip leader, for example. That's the type of stuff you'd want to avoid. We just like to kind of evaluate things based on how much we're covered by in every given scenario. So we don't want to be right next to stacks. Like we don't want to be playing big blind versus button versus stack that significantly covers us by 2 times as many chips that we have, or whatever the case may be when we're the mid stack, because it just eliminates our ability to defend. It eliminates our ability to play post flop. Our bluff catching and value thresholds get quite different. So the things I'm looking for are just like, yeah, it's about all based on stack multiples, and I don't want to be in spots where I have to play common spots like button versus big blind or small blind versus big blind against a stack that massively covers me, because that's gonna decrease the amount of hands I get to play.
Very, very, very nice insight as we see aces getting handed around. Nice for the short stack there. Very critical time to be getting good hands to be able to open and hopefully get some action. Doesn't get that here. Not much for anyone. Ace 7 off, going to fold all the way to the button. The king deuce off, not going to play as we see another blind on blind here. 7-8, 10-8 suited. It was interesting with Sergio's sizing versus Rui as a short stack, and he's kind of a middle stack. He did open the queen 8 off on him. Didn't go much more than a min raise, but what's the considerations on sizing there with their stack current situation?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, usually you can play like a multiple size strategy. You can simplify to something like Rui had 16 big blinds at that time, right? Or is it 15? So yeah, you can put in a tiny one. You can build a little bit more of a polar strategy and raise a little bit bigger, but then your raise fold is more expensive. I think what Sergio did makes a lot of sense. And then he just wants to play a really heavy RFI to lean on Rui, even though Rui's in last place. There still is like a premium for Rui to get his chips in, so Sergio can lean on that. Just because when you're at a 9-handed final table, even if you're in last, your EV of fold is still worth something, so you can hang around for the next few hands, and maybe one of these 25 BB stacks bust or a 30 BB stack gets cooler, whatever the case may be. So it's not necessarily the case that just because you're the short stack, you just play as you would for chips. So that's why Sergio did that RFI, and he can lean on him a little bit. Here we saw, yeah, we did miss a few hands when we were talking about some of that other stuff, but we saw Sven open, and then I believe, did he check the flop on that ace-6-6?
I think so. And the 4 then delayed was a delayed C bet, I believe. But
yeah, I like that. I like the concept of kind of understanding that when you're going to RFI that wide, like we talked about, that you do have to play some, a decently heavy flop check, because you have so much garbage in your RFI range. A lot of people aren't that good at this.
This could be interesting yeah, but the guy, like one of the perfect bluff or 4-bet candidates and someone who's very capable, Victor. So you said this player is exciting and aggressive and definitely could be taking this spot, and he does.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is the guy that's going to put that in every time.
Well,
and not to say that it's bad.
And this is a big start for the chip leader, who is going to be in a different position. All of a sudden, got to fade 2 outs. All the river. It is a fade. It is a knockout, and Victor gets super sort of fake coolered. The ace 5 suited, pretty powerful. The equity there, as you see, is pretty live there. And now a guy that is willing and able to drive that stack. And this is something I'd say maybe the biggest 8-handed gap. 6 million at this stack depths is a very, this juncture of the tournament. It's a lot of chips and double essentially Zhao. No, he's 3.7, but getting close to double someone on his direct. He's got direct left. So very, very interesting hand. Is that, you said you expected that with that situation with him, right?
I expected that to go in. I'm not sure how often it should. I don't think it's something that's going to go in 100% of the time. And that whole decision doesn't depend on, I had this like ICM sim and I looked it up. It just matters if Victor's finding enough bluffs there or not, right? Because as soon as you turn down the bluff frequency for the imposition player, all these plays that are automatic at equilibrium you just play much tighter. And Victor is someone that is capable of bluffs, but I think that he does oscillate between playing how he thinks he should and just knowing that in some cases he'll have it too often and the other player's not going to adjust properly. So yeah, I think this is probably the bottom of ElkY. This is open for the pocket pairs. If not, if he shouldn't already just be at pocket 7s, just because of Zhao and Vaskarensky in position on here, Zhao in position and Vaskarensky in the small blind. And I don't know, I'm going to be like you today. I might just be butchering this guy's name all day. What's his first name?
For which one, Mikolitis or Zhao? Or
Zhao. For the button here, the chip leader.
I see the initial, right? I don't even know. It's M.
We're gonna all right. So here, So here, I think like this is kind of telling that he's ready to go. I don't know how often he's doing things like this, but I would be playing pretty heavy flat strategies here and a little bit of a polar 3-bet strat. And this one would be kind of going into more calling for me. I would 3-bet it sometimes, obviously, but here the shape would be like when I cover Jao by so much, I can flat insanely wide, like especially with the presence of some short stacks around and Jao having a firm second place. So when I can flat really wide and my value thresholds are still quite high, like it's not exciting for me to get it in with like pocket tens there for 40 BB for it's like 80 BBs or whatever. It's like we still have the same value thresholds, but we flat more. So I take the linearity out of my three betting range to a certain extent. So it's interesting to see what he does with that spot, just because.
Yeah.
And here versus chip leader,
he's also setting the tone. You know, if you're Zhao there, it matters. Those early ones, you're like, all right, I got ace five cutoff. Is he really going to have, you know, he happens to have a strong hand there, but really just gets to kind of assert himself. And now here he does have double the second place. So pretty big lead and situation unfolding for the pressure. We'll likely see coming. Could make quick work of some of these other stacks get, but people aren't that short. I mean, Rui's got 600 at 40K. I mean, no one's like critically short right now. So there's still a lot of play, just a huge stack. And I got to mention, just based off his Hen and Mob, pretty interesting. This player whose name is not easy to pronounce, our chip leader, I guess Maxime is his name, Vas Krasinski.
Maxime, we'll go with that, Max.
Yeah, Maxime. So he interestingly enough was, I'm looking at, started his first Hen and Mob result is 2022 in August. He was playing $300, $200, and $400 online events in 2022. That's his Hen and Mob for the year. 23, a couple 5Ks and 1500s, right? And then now 24 February, he plays a 25K. He gets third for 230. He gets sixth in a 25K Triton for 337. And then he wins that one you mentioned in Cyprus, the 100K for a 1.25 million. So pretty impressive run here, just sort of elevating and getting into the high stakes quickly, and seems like having some success right now.
He's crushing. And what? Oh wow, this is gonna be it. He just three bet Jao 2 of the last 3 hands.
Wow.
And now
this is actually crazy that it's the 1-2, and he probably can't believe it. He's like, man, I got the nuts. Tier one. Zhao, this is gonna be. I mean, this is gonna shift the power. There's almost no way this doesn't get in, right? I mean, Zhao's gonna click in. He's got ace king suited.
Yeah, he could for 80. He could potentially call the 4-bet. We're certainly going to see the 4-bet, and then. Whether he calls the 4-bet or 5-bets is probably quite close. I don't think it would be a bad play at all to call the 4-bet when you're covering every bluff and you have a lot of playability with the suited hand, and obviously you're never getting it in good. You're just going to flip or get a fold. So calling the 4-bet certainly an idea. Taking it down and not letting another out of position player realize with all of his bluffs is also another idea. I think one of the things that we've seen already from Max that I originally stated with the ace jack and the nines is that he is adopting this approach where he's going to be linear for a smaller size. But you can see he's going small, 3-betting, and being linear, even though his get-in thresholds are very high. That's clearly to me a strategic choice on his part, and not necessarily what you would see at equilibrium being completely standard, because sometimes you just play a lot of flats with a covering stack like this. And 3-bet your very best hands and your very worst hands, but it is also a strategy to just put everything in a 3-bet range and just say, I'm going to play a bunch of pots in position versus this other guy. He's never going to 4-bet me. So he's going to be thinking about all that right now, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I felt like it was just going to go. I mean, just such a commanding lead. Doesn't want to like get too cute, and there it is. He's going to run into the buzzsaw. And look at this, though. I mean, this could be one of the sickest leads of all time. He has got outs, heart or a jack, and this could be. It is not. Wow, what a sweat that is for Zhao. That would have been crazy. Who'd had 9.5 million? We've never seen anything close to that type of lead if that had happened. But as it stands, our little flip flop from first and second, but quite a sweat there. Big pot, big pot early on.
Yeah,
8-handed 9 million, not something you see very often. I guess it was 6 million pot, but to have 9.3.
That was a wild spot just because they had, 80 and 150 big blinds or whatever the case, but whatever it was. So it was, that was.
That would also been very rare to see first, second go out with 8 left, right? That's also pretty uncommon to get all in. It takes that type of hand, ace, king suited, aces, kings, queens, kind of generally for the 1 and 2 stack to get in. I think that's pretty not typical. But big hands there, of course. Do you think? I mean, as played, if he had just flatted and that flop came, that's a pretty scary board, but still aces. Is there any scenario where it's still going to play out the same?
Yeah, it would just play out the same. I would assume Zhao would just maybe make a flop C bet and then probably just protect on the turn. The turn was kind of a brick, right?
Yeah.
So it would have, Maxime probably would have just called down. We're probably going to see with a king here in his hand, Zhao go for a tiny little value bet and just get snapped. Just check down. Oh, it's interesting. He didn't even value bet. I would assume at this point, this is a mandatory value bet for Sven, just trying to get called by something like ace-5 or something. Also probably the bottom, if not a fold pre-flop. Just because you're raising into a massive chip leader as a mid stack and you have a 25 BB stack in the small. So you're kind of prioritizing. You don't really want to get 3-bet or jammed on by the small, and then you're playing a pot versus great fold by Zhao. That just checked down and you just folded.
Would you have been surprised to see him 3-bet the king 3 off? I've seen sort of these sort of king gapper, like just take those when the button versus blind there, but he does flat.
One thing that's notable about that is actually probably a good data point for Zhao is that he's trying to control hands like that, whereas you might see some other players take a less precise approach and just say, I have king X low, I'm going to 3-bet every single time. But he's evaluating the fact that if all of his bluffs are coming from offsuit stuff, it gets really easy to over bluff, and he's doing it against another great regular. So to me, that tells us something about Zhao's approach, that he's trying to control those types of hand classes as opposed to just looking at it and being like, I got 3-bet, I'm going to 3-bet it.
Yep. Yeah, very interesting. Again, why poker's so fun. There's a lot of different ways to go about stuff. There's also a lot of history and stuff that we don't know how these players necessarily perceive each other. And these type of 150, 200 person fields, 10Ks, they play weekly. A lot of them have a lot of history and understanding. Tell me a bit about your approach with notes and players. Like what are some things you would be noting here? Because these guys do play a lot with each other and obviously such a high level. What are some things that separate players at this stakes, these ability, like between, say a Sergio and a Zhao, or Pavel and Rui, what are some, like, how big a gap in the skill can there be in this type of environment?
I think that it's not necessarily like a huge skill gap. It's just like very different approaches that end up getting very similar EV. Let's talk about this hand real quick before I answer that one, just because we've got something interesting and probably great going on where Maxime has taken the nut flush blocker and a low card and check raised it, which is a good standard, kind of like a good mixed play, or maybe even really high frequency that a lot of people miss. That's because he's got the 2 in his hand, so he's increasing the folds from the C-bet, having that high-low combination. And this should just go call because Sergio probably wants to play very polar. So now Maxime will probably just check because this board is so connected and he has such a wide RFI that he's going to have a lot of garbage here. So he probably needs to play a heavy check. This board smashes the Sergio's defend range when he's usually going to be around like offsuit 8. Goes for the small bet. That makes sense too with an 8 and the 6. But yeah, this is a board where out of position is going to be really wide to open, and the in position is really connected around that board. So damn, we got so much interesting stuff going on right off the bat. We're going to talk about a million things at once. But
there is some cool hands, definitely.
But yeah, that ace-2, we don't have to talk about it too much, but that's just like a nice check raise from him, finding a hand that'll give him bluffs on a club run out. He even bluffed that turn to pair to get Sven off a hand like he had, so that was good stuff. Now here, I probably would have seen myself checking on a hand that completes some straights and flushes into a condensed range at that point, but betting 2 pair can't be bad at all. I would have just tried to probably bluff catch that one when I block 2. So I have 2 cards that block continues and I have no heart in my hand. And I unblock all the bluffs, obviously, because he's not going to bluff with an 8 or a 6. I would have probably gone for a check there. This one, as a chip leader, is probably going to get into a flatting or a 3-betting range. I'd probably prefer to flat, but these guys are getting really 3-bet heavy. And
also we see a lot of small 3-bets now at final tables and stuff. This is a little bit bigger on the 3x, but is that because they're deeper too? I mean, the stacks are It's the second, third
This
stack.
is actually so. What we're gonna see with sizing. So that's pretty standard. I would honestly, for 60, I would have put that in a 4-bet. Probably it's a lot to shove 60. And it's just really hard to find as many hands that you want to shove as a bluff. But what you're going to see with sizing, the way it probably should work, is that if you're really, really deep, right? Like even in that case, like 60 BBs, the number one thing, it doesn't matter like if we're at a final table or not. Is that ace-9 off? That looked like a pretty tight fold with ace-9 off. Probably right there. But anyway, with the sizing stuff, it matters. The whole thing that matters is, am I covered and how much am I covered by? So if I'm covered by a ton, I need to use big sizes versus other big stacks. Like if I'm like, you know, 3-betting a chip leader, for example, I need to use big sizes because I don't want to let him go post flop with a wider range when my range is usually kind of like well-defined to my best overpairs, ace, king off, and then some polar bluffs. So it means that you kind of try to turn it into a pre-flop game where you have really big sizes against big stacks that cover you when you're deep. Now, if you cover like Zhao just covered Pavel, you can go smaller because their indifference points are tighter versus smaller sizes because post flop is so bad for them when they're going against a stack that covers them by 2x. So the sizing stuff is really fluid with stack distribution and how much a certain player is either covered or covered by. And then when you get two huge stacks like Zhao and Maxime here, you'll see, like what I already commented on, is that Maxime's probably equilibrium strategy before, or if they're equal, it would be a lot of big 3-betting because your value threshold is so high. It's like some cases it's kings, ace, king. So it wouldn't make much sense to have small 3-bets, but you can also just go a more exploitative or alternative route where you have a lot of small 3-betting and just try to go say that this guy's not going to 4-bet me too much, and I'm just going to put these tiny linear 3-bets in and play post flop. So what we're seeing here has been mostly small sizes, which to me, to the naked eye, is either an intentional choice or just like an alternative strategy they're using, because I'm sure they're aware of the bigger sizes. Yeah, it's interesting to having these two massive stacks. Like right now, for example, about the sizing thing, like if Zhao had opened here, Maxime would have to, it would be mandatory that he only has a massive 3-bet size because its value range would be like aces. So it wouldn't make any sense to go to 3x, let Zhao play a bunch of post flop versus him, and then go from there when they have such a massive two-way risk premium.
Yeah, this is problematic for Zhao. I mean, top pair, the Jack Queen.
Also,
yeah, but worst hand he could have against basically queens.
Pretty close pre-flop, to be honest. You're up against an under the gun 8-handed range that is like 36 BBs or so. Or no, sorry, 33, 34.
Yeah,
so,
players behind a lot of
and he's got that. He's opening into this Sergio in the cutoff, Rui short on the button. That's Michaelis right on his left short. So like that's a really tight open from Sven, and I would think that the queen and the jack specifically are some of the cards that he opens with his widest like raise folds, right? Like it's going to be like king jack off, king queen, ace jack off, ace 10 for his kind of like weakest raises here when he's like, it's like we said, shallow payouts, short stacks everywhere. He's kind of a mid stack at this point, opening with 2 chip leaders on his left. That's going to be a really tight open, and I think queen jack suit is certainly close, if not just a fold. And we would typically not want to turn a hand like that into a 3-bet as often, because we would rather have some offsuit stuff for 3-bets, because Sven out of position is going to rejam suited broadways, so the offsuit stuff just does a good job of having 2 blockers to his rejam range. This all looks pretty standard post flop, and now let's see if Zhao's going to dig deep for like, I would assume that king 3 was like an exploitative fold, because it's hard to just be able to fold like a high card plus a pair on a check down line button versus big blind, in the same way that it would be difficult here to make fold. But he does kind of have, the queen's not great. One of Sven's delays here probably, and then bluff river might just be something like queen 10 suited, maybe king queen, because he's so tight pre-flop and so ace x heavy. Wow. It's probably just a great fold, but he found some good folds already so far. That's good thinking.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the post flop ability player, you know, in that spot where it is maybe close to call, that he's just so confident to go post flop and understands how tight the range is, that it's almost like he you know what I mean, he's folding there for that size on that river in a spot, you know, just he makes good decisions, and avoid sort of big problems. But yeah, nice folding. And here, Pavel going to step into a value hand in the big blind, so certainly not going to fold, right? Just call. Makes sense, I guess. King Jack suited, also one of those hands that can be kind of aggressive in spots, but here it just seems like you're doing really well against a lot of the hands. So he does just call and is got a good situation going.
Yeah, we've seen twice this idea of just having a really nice playability hand in the big blind where you're facing a really wide aggressive RFI and there's no reason, like you don't gain any clearance benefits from shoving a hand like of this hand class. But as soon as you get, you're more aggressive with your offsuit stuff, and some high-low offsuit might do some jamming or some 3-betting, and this portion of your range is just going to be in the call line playing great post flop. The online payout structure and ante structure, especially as we get shorthanded, does lend to more of these RFI, these high pressure, like we've seen in almost every spot. The small blind plays a really aggressive raise first in because the big blind is playing tighter due to the payout structure compared to live tournaments where it's more top heavy. And when you're shorter handed, there's a bigger ante. So here, this is a value bet that's really tiny. But I still think that it's difficult for Sven to find the raise, and he'll probably call. We probably don't expect Pavel to have, a 7x in the value line here. So it's kind of difficult to get paid if we were to raise that King Jack, even though it kind of is a nutty hand versus that line. It's probably one of those spots where your hand is really high equity, but you still don't have to raise it.
Yep.
Surprised to see Maxime skip to ace-6 with all these short stacks, especially because the guys to his left are really, really short. So that means that where they are, it puts a lot of pressure on the players and the rest of the hand, right? Like if he were to open, they would have a relatively tight get in. So it gets through them a lot. And then when there's two folded stacks like that and the rest of the players have to play the hand, that puts a lot more pressure on them. When they're already folded, there's zero chance of them busting this hand, and everyone else has to tighten up accordingly after it gets through. So I thought a player like him would probably use his ace-x there. I mean, definitely ace-7. Here we're seeing Sven. I like this. I like playing calls here, but you see a lot of players shy away from it, especially with the chip leader in the big blind, who's going to be able to play really aggressive squeezes. You see the squeezing strategies are often not even realistic, so you can expand your calling range just based on that alone. I do think Jao would try hard to find them, but they're typically just so aggressive, especially with like offsuit ace-x or queen x suited, king x suited, whatever, some offsuit broadways that look appealing to overcall. So yeah, this one's just gonna fold to Sven on the button, pretty easy. But yeah, I like the call there. I think it's a strong enough hand to call versus 50 BB open.
So your preference would be call, then fold, or 3-bet? Where would you 3-bet the King Jack off?
I would never fold it. I would just call and 3-bet.
Right, King Jack there. Yeah, this is a lot of familiar faces. Over 1,200 watching right now. We'll have giveaways for you. Please hit that thumbs up, subscribe in the chat. Also on my Twitter, I didn't put a giveaway today, but I will. I'll put the link. Going to give away 50 cash for that. We got Nick here with 38 million lifetime earnings. And Nick, what's the last time you've played? When's the last time you've been playing online tournaments? Has it been a bit? You've been focusing live?
Yeah, focusing on live and living in Vegas now. Like I did live in Canada for a really long time, so it's easier for me to play, on stars and different places like that. So, but now I'm in Vegas full time, and there's so much Triton. I'm really focusing on live, and I do still work with a lot of online players, and with a couple different stables and stuff like that. But so I know what's going on in the online streets, but I'm mostly playing live. Yeah, the schedule's big, and when I get time off, I like to actually focus on, some life stuff or working on my own game, and not getting home from trips and just hopping on and playing right away and playing heavy schedules. So,
yep, very cool. Well, here we go.
Triton schedule is pretty demanding now, so it's not much time off anyway.
You're gonna hit, but you'll go to Bahamas for the 50 mil, I'm sure, and then Monaco. You're gonna go as well.
Yep, yeah, I'm going to Monaco in less than 2 weeks actually now at this point. So my time off kind of went by fast, and then I'll be in Bahamas for there's a 500K invitational. Excited to play that. That'll be huge. And then some of those other big names like you mentioned. So yeah, it's about to be a very busy time of year for live poker, and I'm excited for it. And then there'll be some more time off in the beginning of the year next year. Here we see our boy Max. He doesn't skip spots. This is a really difficult to find and well executed check raise by Zhao, in my opinion. Here, I think it's very simple. I think it's very easy for a lot of players to put their range into different sort of bluff catching, value catching lines, and they lack complexity. And this is a nice play from Zhao here, and he probably correctly identified that Maxime would be maybe too linear with King X for value here on this limp check pot. Open ender, it's difficult. I'm not sure I've fold too much when I can make the nuts, but on that one. But yeah, it's that was a nice play by Zhao. Here we're gonna see an easy open with ace-8. That's gonna be one of those steal hands. No, missed it.
Yeah, a little surprised there with his game that he would bet fold there, but I guess right, not drawing. It's a flush draw board, so he's got the 6 outs to the nuts, not 8 even, and
yeah, it's close. I mean, it's certainly in thought, but usually if you can just bang off a 4 and win a gigantic pot, versus what should be, you know, Zhao did happen to have one of his weaker hands that he would have in that line, but yeah, close. It could just very well be a fold, but more importantly, that was great execution from Zhao there to find the check raise. And let's see, this short Rui's got to fold the 6-7. Those offsuit connected hands play really poorly, especially versus chip leader ranges. He doesn't agree.
Risk premium the lowest. It's close. I think that's interesting spot. I see a lot of different thought processes on this. So he does have a live hand, but I think that is part of the problem with the 7-8 off. You're going to be dominated a lot to some random stuff, right? He's opening super. It's not like he's got ace-10s and king queens. Mostly he does have like, 10-7 and whatever, all kinds of stuff, or jack-7 suited and these hands that he's going to be in bad shape. But he does get a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, this worked out for him. And yeah, typically you just see, with that shallow stack. I mean, that one's close. I actually saw it as, I thought it was 6-7. 8-7's a little bit stronger. But usually those offsuit connected hands in these like flat payouts versus chip leaders, when you share, like you already mentioned, like you share cards with chip leaders, they can put you all in on a bunch of different flops, or at least bet a lot. You're going to be in a rough spot with those, and your defend typically looks quite tight, even if you are in last. But also those are the type of things where players intentionally like to break the rules because they feel like they should fight harder, because ICM poker doesn't really understand that if you keep folding too much as like an 8 or 10 BB stack, you're just going to get run over. So I think that was, either way, it doesn't matter. But that one and 7-8 might just have been a call. Yeah, here, this is it. Ketchu has to play this hand, and I think he needs to go high up for a squeeze, and yeah, that looks good to me. He needs a really good hand to try to put some money in there, and his bluffs are probably still want to have like ace-X and a sort of irrelevant card, probably, since he's not going to get flatted.
King Jack
tough board.
Yeah, a little bit of trouble here against the chip leader on the Jack 8-6 rainbow board here. Zhao, who is in a very good spot and good position in dominating here. What are his options? Obviously, call, raise, never. I mean, of course, never folding, but he does just go with the call, and that is a wow action card there. Pretty much the most action possible. Now 2-pair versus nut flush draw, and ace jack is no longer the best hand. What a turn.
You would have thought I would have probably checked the flop a bunch as Michelatis, and then probably tried to have it go like chip leader puts in a pretty heavy betting volume, and then the big blind, if he does have some calls with like 9-10 or 7-9 suited or an 8x backdoor, then I would have had a really nice spot to just check and then check raise as Michelatis, but it worked out from the way he played it here. Zhao has no incentive to jam this. It doesn't accomplish anything. He never gets a fold from a better hand. Now this is going to go probably bet most of his stack, but leave some behind. And then Zhao's going to be in another really difficult bluff catching spot. And he's going to like having the ace of spades because that's going to be some of Michaelatus's give ups. And he's going to love having a jack because king jack is a big part of the offsuit value range. So, and as with aces, so this is going to get pretty tough for Zhao here. I expect us to see like a bet of like 380 or something.
Yeah, nice spot with top two and realizing you're going for value. And Zhao, again, he really has had some difficult spots. This one, a bigger pot. He's going to face a bigger size, but he's made some good folds from small bets in spots where he has, you know, okay, so he goes for all of it.
He doesn't leave anything back. In spots where I'm covered and I have some bluffs in my range and it doesn't really change the continue range too much for the in-position player, I always leave something back because like if I have, like let's say I just had like ace nine of diamonds or something here or whatever the case may be, like I just want to bluff, and if I run into the nuts, leave some chips back so I can try to spin it up, right? But not that big of a deal, but typically I leave a little bit back. And now, like I already said, like this hand has so many good properties for bluff catching, but again, it doesn't really matter if we have great properties for bluff catching, because the number one thing before we even get to that part of the thought process is, what is this guy, what does he need to do to have bluffs here? So maybe ace 10 is a big offsuit combo, but like ace 10 off, c-betting that flop multi-way seems a little bit dicey. I would have thought that the whole range is really heavy check, honestly. If not 80% plus, if with Zhao flatting behind and covering so much. So I think Zhao is probably right now deducing that it's really difficult to have a multi-street bluff here as Michaelatus, and you'd have to be digging deep for a really great player to have to bluff catch kind of at all here, really, for some people, you know.
And you're saying saying having the ace of spades is good, but having spades in general, like there's some continuation spade bluffs, so that's not good, is it? To have, but you're saying it's good to have the ace of spades.
Well, I'm saying that Michaelatus would probably give up with his spades, knowing that, you know,
right,
maybe Zhao has a bunch of like jack X of spades for his fold, or even as a chip leader, great fold. 6x of spades, or even just that backdoor ace 10 of spades. Like that's where Zhao's going to pull a lot of folds from. So typically, you know, it's a unique spot to understand what people are doing in that multi-way c-bet spot. But typically, you'd think that the spades as Michaelatus, you probably don't want to be bluffing with two spades in your hand, because especially medium ones, because Zhao probably pulls a lot of folds from exactly the hand that he had, like he did. So that's why I was saying if the spot was working like that, Zhao might think like he has a good bluff catcher, because he's just kind of increasing the likelihood. Like I said, like the guy has some kind of rifle off with ace nine. But with ICM opening ranges too, where you have to pull so many bluffs from like kind of strong-ish c-bets, it's just sort of tough to get to the point where we think that somebody has enough bluffs. But that being said, an incredible fold when you're getting a price like that, like it would just be 50, right, or even less. So Zhao's been 3 for 3 with great folds that are difficult. Now this is a scenario where Sven has to continue very tight to defend, because all of the short stacks are putting so much pressure on him.
Yep. Yeah, we were a hard or a jack away for seeing 9 million seven-handed. All of a sudden, things are tight between 1 and 2. Pavel just sort of hunkered in with 2.5, very healthy 2.3, but almost 50 blinds. So there's a lot of play left here today. Couple, again, Rui still 12 blinds, 8 left now, as couple nice hands here in the blinds. Aces, of course, the nicest, but 10 jack suited. Sven thinking about what to do here. He's going to step into it. Wow. Not good timing there.
I would also just tend to put that one in a flat for a couple different reasons. One, again, when there's Rui at 11, Sergio's at 15, and Katsu's at 22, 23. Pavel and Sven are kind of firmly in third and fourth here, right? So yeah, there's nothing Michaelatus can do other than do that. But what I'm saying is basically like when you're in when you're in third and fourth, pretty clearly as Pavel and Sven, I think that our value thresholds are tight enough and the button range isn't completely out of control where I would play some strong flats, and that would enable me to play some other flats with like my suited broadways. I don't really love playing like a 40 effective jam there with the rest of the shallow stacks, although it would be some stuff for sure. And then what I'm saying is basically I think I can play a bunch of flats there, play a passive post flop pop versus Pavo, kind of do a good job of realizing, and then not have those really linear like 3-bet folds. I'd go a little bit more offsuit driven and offsuit ace-x for my 3-bet bluffs there as Sven. Because it's not like Pavel's going to play a substantial calling strat especially versus a 4x 3-bet. So I don't think your hand, the playability matters as much as Sven would have suggested it does by 3-betting Jack 10 suited. I like the move to add a flat here with pocket sixes. You see a lot of players just pitch those. I think it's good. And I like mixing check and c-bet with the ace queen ace of hearts here. Obviously you're just going to be able to show down versus a bunch of other ace highs that chose to take the flatting line here as Michaelatis. So you're not really accomplishing much on this flop other than just like protection against whatever you perceive the flatting range to be. This might even just be a little bit of a tricky little value bet he's got here. I can't imagine folding a pair to this size just because of what's going on here. Like he might just have ace queen of spades for some value that's just going to check down every time where he has this hand. So I think that was pretty easy, and I'd be surprised if Maxime continues, because he can still just beat spade draws and maybe a super sticky ace jack, although I don't think that's the case. If he does, well, yeah, okay. I was going to say that would be a shocking bet.
Ace queen, difficult hand to play. Sixes did well to get to the river there, as we see still a 8-handed final table to catch you up if you're joining us. Victor Malinowski got open, or 3-bet kings, got 4-bet jammed by the start of the day chip leader, and he did flop the ace 5 of spades, took down kings. That was how we got to 8. And then there was a big hand, ace king suited, the 1 and 2 stack. Zhao had aces, the chip leader. His name again, a little bit tough to go for, but we'll Maxime there, who currently has 3.5, had ace king suited. It was 2 heart flop and Broadway draw, so had a lot of outs, did fade, and now we're still 8-handed in a few. I mean, it's getting a little tight too. 2.2, 2.2. Sergio and Rui are short, and there's still playability. So a lot of wide open today. Still three very experienced players with the biggest stacks, and a couple other big names with the shortest stacks. So a little bit of everything. This is definitely tough final table though. There's no, you don't see satellite winners really right here. This is pure some big boy poker today. Everyone here capable, willing, able, and yeah, fun to watch.
And we've got an interesting hand going on now where it's blind versus blind. I would have thought Zhao with this stack distribution is playing such a heavy RFI. When he covers, he's got like 100 versus 65. He did limp call this hand. Again, Maxime with a polar ISO strat. I would probably like to see him tone it down a little bit and not use the 2 connected low cards as much. Like I'd probably be more in that like, 9 deuce region instead of having instead of having 2 low cards. We prefer to kind of have 1 so that we at least block continues to some extent and unblock folds from a range that probably VPIPs like 100% with this much pressure on Maxime. So yeah. I don't love having the 3-4, although it might get in there sometimes. And then for Zhao, I would have thought that I would take a hand like 10-6. That's a really nice clean river for Zhao, removing Maxime's value. And Maxime's going to have a difficult time giving this up with 4 high. And
you're right. This is like such a bad card though for him to bluff. Really, I mean, it's tough. Now he's just like, he literally has the nut low, 4 high, and just as himself, as a player, he's got the bright lights. He's got Nick calling action. It's tough to just check it down. 4 high, sorry, 1.5. You know what I mean? It just does feel like he's going to do something, but you can tell he doesn't like it. This is what he kind of knows. This is not good. Sometimes you got to give up, but no, not here.
Now he puts it in. Yeah. So, I mean, I think his value range is obviously at this point probably going to be a king on this line on the limp call. So I might have seen myself go a little bit bigger. I also think that for Zhao, one of his like he's going to be thinking about what's this guy going to ISO and bluff with, and he might arrive at like 10-3, 10-4, Jack 3, Jack 4, Queen 3, Queen 4, Queen 5. So he might not love his 10. Um, Now Vaskrensky is probably thinking Zhao has stuff like Queen Jack, Queen 10 in the check call line twice, so he can want to use these low cards. Zhao really doesn't have any 3 and 4x in the folding range, so by the river, this is probably pretty damn clean.
I will say I'm gonna the Zhao right now as chip leader. This would be a huge separation, but also he's just gotten all these river decisions right. He really has played post flop. He's made fold, been right. Now here he goes. Is he just maybe just folding all day, or is he just gonna click and play perfect and get everyone correct? Because this is now we've seen an escalator of pot size. Now was $1 million, now it's $1.5 million. And he would be calling 774. Still going to have a lot of chips if he calls and would be wrong. But if he calls and is right, I mean, he is running away with this one right now. He would have a lot of chips, right? Another 2.2. He'd have 6.8 to 2 million. It would basically be 3x the other three players. So this is a huge moment. Using some of that chess clock, 15 minutes to start. You can see everyone pretty healthy. He's burned the most, a lot of it being on this hand. And I don't know, man. He just seems like he's fully dialed in today. I feel like he's going to call this one. Really tough.
I'm thinking about the way the ranges work. And I guess like, obviously if Zhao has ace 6, that's like, so it's not really the relative hand strength because obviously ace 6, it's still the same degree of bluff catcher, but the cards Zhao would much prefer to have the ace 6 blocking ace king and aces and no bluffs, really, because I think it's hard to find ace X bluffs here for Maxime. So Zhao's definitely right now, he's in the tank thinking just like, is 10-3, 10-4, 10-5 are those heavy bluffs with that ISO and barrel because they would make a lot of sense on the turn for like stone no equity offsuit hands. And that's what I'd be thinking about too, is just like, where is this guy going to pull his ISOs from and where is he going to pull bluffs and value from? So now we're at a situation where Zhao's probably thinking, even pocket sixes probably isn't an ISO pre-flop. And nor is like king 6 off probably is a little bit. So whenever we're in these bluff catching scenarios, we're just thinking, what value do I block? What bluffs do I block? What's the price I'm getting? How often do I have to defend? And what are these properties telling me in terms of like how often I should call here? That's what's going through Zhao's mind. And basically the thing that's going through Vaskrensky's mind is also not necessarily like I have 4 high, I can't win, but are my cards efficient at getting folds, right? Because the last thing we want to do in these 3-barrel situations is kind of make a bluff that accidentally blocks all the folds, right? So here it'd be more like, maybe Zhao's weakest call hands are, like I said, like Queen 10, Queen Jack that turn that gutter and can't fold some ace high type stuff. Maybe in, its own like ace 8 or whatever gets sticky on the flop and turn. So looks like a pretty clean bluff from Maxime. And just if Zhao can, basically the last part of the question is this a guy that overdoes it or underdoes it, right? Because even if we take an isolated hand like this, there's certain points of this hand where Maxime had the option to do something more passive and he didn't. So the whole question is, does he do this every single time pre-flop?
Wow. It's a fold.
That's the type of thing too, yeah. I would have liked to take a look at him if I was tanking 6 minutes in a live tournament at a final table that was this big and see, because online he could be super stressed out, but you can't see him, right? But I think the big part of that one was just like, if he's taking a hand like this every single time pre-flop, and then he's just 3-barreling that hand class every time, you just make infinite money with all your bluff catchers, right? So it's that's sort of like the main decision point when you're thinking about that.
Well, that evens things out. Now we got basically tied at the 4.3 range, 2.2 for the other two, and then everyone else in the bit shorter situation. Ace Queen now for Rui getting 3-bet. This is not not like loving it, but I don't think you got a ton of choices off what 11, 12 blinds.
No, I mean, these guys versus each other, they're absolutely loving it because they know that they all have this bluff. I'm not loving it if I'm in Florida and like an old dude does this to me. Yeah, but here it's like Rui's kind of like, yeah, okay, I got maybe I'm surprised he called that. That's just like I would just shove because Pavel is capable of having. I'm going to be out of position, really low SPR, and I'm up against somebody that is capable of having some of these bluffs, and it's going to be difficult for me to navigate unless he's just going to plan on like check jamming every single flop, and he thinks he's going to get a little bit of extra money in when he doesn't make a pair. But now he's going down this slow play route. Yeah, I would have thought I would just put that one in and get all the clearance in the world versus whatever the bluffs are. And we do see this tiny little 3-bet showing up as a good way for Pavel to play his value and bluff range. Rui has real concerns about ace-10 being a primary bluff for Pavel. That's for sure. But again, he's not going to go anywhere. But I think this run out, it doesn't make a ton of sense to check because every single one of Pavel's hands has showdown value. But probably maybe not this one. I guess this one can tie against if Rui probably should have opened some ace-x that chops and gotten really sticky with it post flop.
Right.
So I think that's why we're seeing Pavel not turn a hand like that into a bluff. Although if you think about it, if you think about the bluffing range, he probably needs the bluff with ace-x and try to make Rui, if Rui did flat something like king jack suited or something, because you don't have anything else at that point as Pavel. You're not bluffing with like, you know, king 9 suited or whatever. It's just ace-x for bluffs, I think. And he would have some better ones, like if he did bet the flop with where he had like a induced pre-flop with something like pocket 9s, but those might even just start betting the turn. So on that line, I think ace-x is kind of a reasonable candidate to bluff, just because if you think about what you have, it's kind of starting to get towards the bottom.
What are some at this level? We were playing Triton's 25K pluses live, and you're playing the 10K GGMillion on here. What are some of when you battle with the smaller field, higher stakes? What are some of the notes or some of the things that you think are the biggest differentiators? Like if someone defends too wide or 3-bets, like what are some of the most noticeable outliers with players' games at this level? Like you said, they kind of always find a way to get to the same result, but they just have differences. What are some things you're really looking at in players' games when you're competing against them?
Yeah, sorry, I know you answered that before. I started answering that, and then we had like 10 hands in a row.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for the stuff that's the most important, I would say it's really difficult to know based on small sample sizes. But things like the hand we just saw with Maxime, right? I'm trying to pay attention to not that like he's aware that he can do that, but it's just how much people are doing things. That's the whole thing at high stakes, right? Because like all these guys are so good, they're aware of what to 3-bet with pre-flop. They're aware of how to run different 3 barrels, but it really, really matters like what level of precision they're playing at. So that's, like I said in that hand, that's the thing that can shift everything from I have to play, you know, some calls and some folds with this 10-6. I have to call it every time, or I have to fold it every time. So that's the information you're trying to glean from watching people play. And it's really difficult, right? Because that's where, you know, online players playing thousands and thousands of, you know, hundreds of thousands of hands against each other, they get that info more quickly than we do as live players, right? So you kind of have to be guessing at what level of precision your opponents are playing against. But, you know, there's not really much to be said for note taking against such great players in terms of like, he did this with his hand, because usually they know kind of what hands to use. It just really matters like how often they're doing stuff. The other things that are a little bit easier that we've seen come up a couple times today is like, is somebody willing to like break the rules of ICM and play a lot more calls than they're supposed to, and probably for good reason, and maybe ignoring some of that stuff? Because if you have an opponent that decides intentionally I'm going to call 3-bets more, I'm going to call opens more, I'm going to call this 3-bet more, right? Then it's going to change everything that we should be doing, because a lot of these ICM 3-betting ranges, they're derived from a response that doesn't play a lot of calling, for example, or the opening ranges are derived from responses that don't play a lot of calling. So they get a lot more high card heavy and a lot less equity or a lot less playability driven, right? So that kind of stuff is what I would be paying attention to is like, is this guy just gonna just play way more calls than he's supposed to for a smart reason? Then I'm going to change my ranges. Last thing I would say that we've seen a little bit too today is post flop. Are people going to play by the rules in terms of you're supposed to technically within the models be very passive against other huge stacks and more aggressive with the more that you cover, and the closer you are in stacks, the more you kind of play small ball against each other. If somebody is not adhering to that either, then I can't really play the same way. I need to change all of my pre-flop strategies as well to expect to face a little bit more heat post-flop and some big sizes than someone playing closer to chip EV. So those are the kind of things I'm thinking about with these final tables. Now, this is an interesting one too, where we did see Pavel move a really nice suited hand into a 3-bet, which looks good. Although again, probably a spot where I would have played some calls.
Against under the gun as well. He's attacking on the gun. We've seen this. Maybe he has a little bit of a read on this player. Thinks he opens wide on the gun. I've seen also Pavel. I've noticed on a few final tables, he's attacked the under the gun open out of the small blind. Or maybe not necessarily just early position raises out of the small blind. I've seen him 3-bet some like king 4 suited against chip leaders and done a bit of, you know, whatever, just sort of taking that spot, which is maybe you get the most credit for 3-betting, right? Too out of the small, is that a bit of that you get? And this is, man, what a not a great situation for him here. He does pair the king. I guess beats a few hands now, like queens maybe that were just called, but queens would probably just put it in, right? For that 3, if you get 3-bet pre.
Yeah. I think this actually was the best river he could have gotten, because to me, if he's structuring the turn in that way, he was trying to force every ace-x to be indifferent and just rifle one off. For me, I don't love I probably don't want to have like king jack backdoor on the turn there when I'm trying to target those exact hands in the fold line. But again, it's a very tight range, so I'm sure it's fine. And he probably thinks that maybe people are overfolding the pocket pairs on the turn, that they probably need to defend a little bit. Something like pocket 9s or jacks calling twice or whatever the case may be versus 2 small bets. Like the turn gets very difficult to defend when he makes that tiny bet. So I'm sure that's what he was thinking there.
Yeah, well,
easy open here. And then this one, either 3-bet folded, or you could probably just put it into a shove or a pseudo shove.
He did get a little bit caught last time, right? Unfortunate timing with the jack 10 suited with aces, woke up in the big blind. Now here with king queen off, just a pretty good hand to be aggressive with in this position.
I would think maybe he's going to do something like make it 750. Or he just shoves. I think that's one where I kind of do like the 750, just because it's pretty easy for me to figure out, like, if I go 750, Michelada shoves, Pavel shoves, my whole range that wanted to go 750 is now dead. I just get to fold everything, because it's not like I'm actually putting like a real good hand in 750. Like I don't have, you know, pocket queens in there or whatever. So I probably would have done that there, but it's a minor difference. It just doesn't even matter really. But yeah, I thought he probably would do one of those things. And it's a little bit too much hand to 3-bet fold if Pavel starts jamming on you with stuff like a slow suited ace or even his own king jack suited, and you end up 3-bet folding a hand like that. That's not ideal, right? So I think that was probably the idea there.
King 9, queen 8, the missionary there, top and bottom. Queen 8 suited, no real excitement here. He needs a 10 and wouldn't even make the nut. Does peel one off for that price.
I've never heard that before. The missionary.
I've say that. I've been saying that for many years, and someone else, I think last week, some Daniel Dinex was on. He says he's never heard that either, and he liked it. He said I'm going to use that. I'm surprised. I thought that'd be a common one, but guess not.
So here we see a check call with a gutter, and then what we're going to see is a check fold. Yeah, I mean, things fine. I think I think you could just do either one on the flop. I'd probably with the offsuit queen, I'd prefer to just kind of bet the flop a little bit more, but those wide range when he's probably limping like almost everything that he wants to play there because he's now in third into the chip leader. He's got to be pretty careful because he's limping kind of strong and wide because he's not really going to want to play too much RFI. Now we can do the same spot here. Now what's happening with these guys is when they're this close, they're not really building too much raise first in. They're going to be playing a lot of limp raise call lines or limp check lines. I think it's quite notable that this is like if you're talking about note taking, right? We saw Maxime ISO the 3-4 when he's covered, and we saw him check back at King Queen suited. Now, if this was King 10 suited, I would say okay. King Queen suited, it seems like mandatory to just get that value raise because Zhao's limping really wide. You get some clearance and like you're not excited when you get folds, but if you got folds, it was probably versus like a 4-6 off that was live against you. And you get called by like a ton of King X that you dominate and Queen X that you dominate. You also clear out some hands like Ace King and potentially Ace Queen that like could win a huge pot versus you. So I think everything is kind of nice to just ISO there. And you can call check, you can call limp raises like and just play post flop with a great hand. So now this check down, I probably would have even put in a little bit of a value bet on the turn with that big flush draw sometimes. Just to get, obviously, if it goes basically pure limp, call, and then really heavy check, Zhao's going to have a difficult time, you know, just calling good hands on the turn. So he'd have to pull some defense from worst king high for sure. I would definitely have maybe, you know, I would have tried to put some more money in the pot pre-flop, but as first case scenario. So here we'll see again, this is one of these spots where he can use this sometimes. I would mostly call. He's going to have a lot of calling with his range because again, it's not very exciting to get it in pre-flop here with many hands. So we'll see pretty heavy call, pretty high value thresholds. But he seems to be on the 3-bet plan with everything today, which is completely fine if he doesn't think that other players are adjusting well. Now, I think you need to play the 4-5 suited here.
Wow, he peeled the 4-5 suited here.
I see that as very standard in this stack situation. Wow. Yeah, when you're that deep, and now it's supposed to go quite passive post flop. Here, I would expect a check or just a small bet.
I defer to you on this stuff, but I'm just saying in terms of maybe how deep they are in the situation. It's just that I generally don't see this type of peeling in this final tables and with this situation. Also, a player like this, we see ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited. He's really seems willing to be super aggressive, and I don't know. I mean, this is wow, really nice hand there from Zhao. 4-5 suited, nice, very nice pickup.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing there is if Zhao's going to be super wide as chip leader, one of the big stacks with a stack in the blind that is under some pressure, he's going to be really wide. Maxime's going to attack him and potentially a little bit too often. And then what's going to happen is you can't just open the button 50 or 60% or whatever the case may be and then just fold everything that's not good. So you got to pull some defense versus the 3-bets. 4-5 suited happens to be a really live hand that can win some giant pots and also have some good properties for bluffing later on, right? Like it's going to have low cards. Like exactly what happened basically is like if Maxime's a little bit, if most of his 3-bet range is ace-x heavy or offsuit Broadway heavy, the 4-5 suited is live, provides opportunities for multi-street bluffs, flops some really strong hands. So tends to not interact too much with the bluffing range, certainly not an offsuit bluffing range. So yeah, I like that from Zhao. And I think those continues, especially versus that slightly smaller check 3-bet size. Like again, that was a small 3-bet for the situation where they're both really, really deep. I would have liked to see the bigger 3-bet to force some indifference from some more hands. When you face that smaller one, like just, I think it was just slightly over 4x, then in position is going to be calling a bunch of different suited aces, suited kings, suited connectors, and you're going to make your life pretty tough when your value range is still relatively tight.
Yeah, really, really interesting. That was a cool hand. There's been, I'd say again, high level stuff. You called at the start. You knew this player, the chip leader, to start. Very aggressive, very, very capable, and really just sort of fearless. Been executing that, and also seems this wave caution at times. So it does have a not just like an absolute kamikaze plan, but he definitely capable and puts pressure and uses big bets, and it's been fun. Been a fun final table. Thought we were gonna get. I mean, honestly, that would have been interesting to see him with 9 million right? At 9 million, 8-handed at that blind level, that would have been that we might have seen like an epic show of just blind, pure aggression all the way. Could really do a lot of things at that point, but now it's sort of tightened up a bit. So yeah.
I mean, he's still in there doing stuff when should be probably the stack with the highest possible risk premium versus Zhao, and he's still battling. So who knows what he would have been doing with a giant chip lead. But So yeah, it's been a lot of spots. Not one of those ones where players are just passing the chips around, right? And we see kind of an interesting fold there from Sven, where he's decided he's probably not playing limps into the stack that covers him by 2x, so he's got to be really tight and choose RFIs. Here we're going to see small 3-bet jam call and likely chop.
3 flush draws though. This is 3. This is the interesting one. Ace king suited, ace king off. Definitely, there is more than what's the percents. We're talking like 4 or 5% of the time. What is it?
Well, he went for the half stack. He didn't want to put. This is probably a little bit notable in terms of maybe you might see some players actually try to bluff at that stack depth for a small 3-bet versus chip leader. But then if they put a hand like this into their
there it is.
Wow, dirty,
most choppy, not today. Nasty way to go from Pavel. He is going to go out in a mystery hand after a knockout. Talk about action. We see our 8th place finisher, still 7 left here, and a mystery hand. Nick, we got 3s in the big blind hand we talked about a bit. There it is. Someone just said these guys hate playing pocket 3s. 3s are on the screen, and we're seeing blind on blind a lot here. So let's work through this here with the 3s.
I'd expected check. Like, it's not exciting to take any of your lower pocket pairs and try to. Wow, how did this chat know that the 3s were about to get hot?
That is impressive.
So yeah, like I said about the 6s on the 6 deuce king or whatever, you're just not going to see those ISOs from the lower pairs. That when you have the stack set up like this, where you're the 2 chip leaders, basically, they just don't want to get into those limp check line and in the limp raise line. And they're fine to do it, but if you have a capable opponent that is actually playing properly pre-flop, they typically wait until you get stronger to start ISOing those pocket pairs. This is he clearly has a value situation, but it's not going to be super exciting anymore if he plays like actually in pot where it was before.
That's probably one of the worst cards, right? Ace 5 and 5-6 all of a sudden complete. No other card really gives you 4 and a 5 are sort of in that range of something that could be getting a little squirrely, but this is still a value hand, of course, set, and now a river, clean river, no club, lose to 5-6, lose to ace 5, and somehow 4s or 7s or 9s, but almost not. That's not really on the table. So what do you think sizing here?
I would just go with pot ish. That makes a lot of sense for me. Maybe even I think something like a pot size bet would be good. And then if I did have a giant bet, like an over bet, I'd be in a straight and my straight blockers for bluffs. We have to remember that if Zhao's playing this really heavy limp strategy, he does have a lot of this is good size, perfect. So it's kind of where I would have been. He does have a lot of hands on the turn, especially that just beat value, right? Because he has all the over pairs, and he probably puts those in check call on the flop. So as this hand progresses, it's a little bit different than a little bit if we're playing a little bit shallower or no ICM, where Zhao definitely has a lot of really strong hands in his limping range. And the way without seeing and with seeing Maxine's cards, even if he could see, it probably feels for Zhao like this guy's putting a shit ton of money in the pot every single hand, right? Because it has been like that all day.
And the bluff may have come up or not now. I'm not sure. We're probably on the threshold of if it is replaying with the, what was it, the half pot bet where he did bluff the 3-4 off, right? So, this is, I mean, there is a world where, is there a way Zhao would ever, can you think of a bluff combination like 5-5 or any bluff? Would he ever bluff, like rebluff here? Is there not really, what bluffs is it? Let's say he gets raised, right? Let's say he does get raised.
You gotta have bluffs everywhere, right? Because
Wow.
he's gonna have the nuts.
Wow.
This isn't rigged. That this is a mystery hand, or it is?
It is a mystery hand. Yeah, no, it's set up for mystery hand. Yep. What do you do now? This is the most exciting mystery hand we've had. Definitely the most action, the most intense. Chip leader for second set on a board. I mean, man, does he just have it? Does he just have 5-6? Does he have ace 5? Like what he's repping it?
You don't beat value. He
doesn't really have 9s or 7s, right? Would he just call with 7s or 4s? He wouldn't really have.
So it's just a question of what is available for Jow for bluffs and how often does he use it? Like the same thing I keep saying. To me, there's a lot of ace 2, ace 3, ace 4. There's a lot of ace X. I'm not sure if he wants. There's a lot of 6-2, 6-3, 6-4. I don't think you're probably not trying to use a pair too often when you bluff, just because you probably want him to fold 2 pair. So then there's some like ace 6. Ace 6 is probably a really nice bluff that you definitely get there with.
Yeah, ace 6 of clubs or something.
You just have 5. He's got 5-6 off.
Wow, ace 5. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Wow.
High level hand.
I think it is. You would prefer to just call with an ace or a 5 in your hand as Maxime, no matter what, right? But 3s is really tough. But obviously, at that point, you just have a bluff catcher like any other, and you can't really be sure if your opponent's going to start taking like 3-5 and ace 3 and bluffing, now all of a sudden your hand is getting really bad, right?
Wow, that was a crazy hand. That is where I feel safer in the booth sometimes. That's scary stuff. That's high level, nasty cooler, and a great fold. We've seen some very great plays today. I mean, that's the 3-4 bluff. Yeah, Zhao's made some really nice folds. He did get that one incorrect. He tanked a long time. One of the longer tanks we've seen too. Was it like a 7-minute tank, 8-minute tank, even longer? 10 maybe on the.
Yeah, well, he had 7 in the bank.
Okay. And then so yeah, probably 6-7 minutes. Yeah, big time poker right now. That is Zhao with the 6.2 and 3.5 in second. Pavel took a nasty ace king to ace king. So we've seen these guys have been playing really tough. The people that have gone out, there have been coolers and like all ins with kind of aggressive ace king, and then we saw the ace 5 suited jam and pick an aggressive move and got kings from Victor to go out in our 9th place. So here we go, 7-handed, playing to a winner, no deal making. And someone said, why didn't you check the river at 3-3-3? Would have saved him time and money. Well, that is got to disagree there. Of course, 3s is a very clear, like huge value hand. You lose to ace 5-5-6, but gotta bet, and then you can decide. But
interesting decision for Michaelitis here. I would think that after check calling the flop, this is almost a mandatory bluff, because what else do you have? Your Zhao's probably not letting you show down when he has his own 8-9, 9-10 type of hand, and obviously has this hand that's going to be probably a mandatory bluff being that low. So for Michaelitis, he check called the flop here. Turn goes check, check. I'd be probably trying to target some stuff like if Zhao had pocket 8s, pocket 9s, if he had pocket 6s, if he has a king X or a jack X, and I have this 5s, that's a really clean bluff combo with the club. He does happen to win, but I think when you think about what you check call the flop with, maybe 9-10 isn't even that great or enough bluffs, really. So I'd probably be looking for some of those low pocket pairs. That's sort of why you check call the flop in the first place, is to provide some of those club bluffs on the river. So that one I would probably would have used it. Ruiz looks like he might be considering yeah, okay, so that one's tight. I mean, that one's close. I think versus that 50 BB-ish open with Zhao behind him with 100 is actually probably supposed to be a little bit more snug than usual.
Yep.
Smaller ante, but in last.
2 5s.
Now let's see if Maxime's gonna stick with the 3-bet everything strategy, because I think that this one certainly goes both ways, but probably more calling when you're both at like 50. 60, sorry.
But
he is doing
the
the
same
3-bet
stats.
every single time. So like when you talk about some of the stuff you'd be noting, even when you can see the cards up, it'd be this, right? Like he hasn't really taken the option to flat a hand that's capable of 3-betting in these high pressure spots, where usually you see the opposite. And I'm not saying one's bad or good. It's just clearly he's decided to play this way. And he's clearing out a lot of equity. He's leaning on people and he's getting folds from pocket fives and stuff like that. So he's certainly decided to play a really tough strategy.
Nick, I got to ask you about this tournament to win you took down this summer was 14 million in the prize pool, 1,440 entries, 2.2 million to first. What was that like? Because you play the high rollers so often, but how is it to win a main event for 2.2 of that type of ROI versus like 100K or 250K?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's awesome, and I love playing those. Here's this pretty standard.
Hold that thought.
Players.
This is a misstep. Rui's been patient. It's going to get a nice situation. No guarantees. Ace King to Ace 4 off. The spades are live. Wheels available. Spades for a sweat. There's the 4. Also, that's like the worst obvious card in the deck. It's the 4 of spades. Now it's to fade a non-spade king, and that is an ace, but not going to be good news for Rui there, as a nasty moment for him. He is out, and now we are down to 6 as a couple dirty beats today, right? We've had ace king to ace king, we had ace 5 suited to kings, and now ace 4 to ace king. So we are 6-handed in a potential double here for Sergio, getting a welcome aces to jacks cooler to maybe tighten the gap here as well. So yeah, that is good timing for him.
This is where that play that Pavel had earlier with ace 7 suited, it's not the same thing because Sergio is shorter, but this is why you kind of need those plays, because Sergio doesn't want to start playing calls when he's up against a chip lead, one of the bigger stacks this early position. So he kind of has to build a range where he has this tiny 3-bet so he can do it with his value, and he needs to have some bluffs. So a lot of people actually just don't have enough bluffs there. And I'm not saying you could ever fold jacks versus a person like that because it's difficult, but you know, that is part of what we see with these really good online guys, where they're aware that they need to have this, like, you know, 3.5 BB 3-bet or whatever the case may be, just because it's you got to do it with your value. So you see here Sergio's reaping the benefits of everyone having that kind of pre-flop
set
balance.
Over set, 1 out, nasty board. He hits the set of jacks, ace jack 4-9, needs the jack only 1 out. You can see it there, not to be nasty stuff. Sergio on a heater for real. Got a brace at 1.9 million, the 10K GGMillions 2 weeks ago, which was a WSOP edition. Now he's back in it with 1.5, healthy, dangerous, 30K, 60K level. You can see upper left of your screen how often every 20 hands the blinds go up. That was wow. What a moment. And I got an echo here. I don't know where that's coming from. You hear that? Do you hear an echo? No. Weird. Very strange. I heard it there. What a pot. 1.5 million. Sergio in the mix. And we'll get back to tell me about your thoughts with the winning the main versus like a high roll. How does that feel?
It's different. It's more fun. I came up playing tournaments like that, and I love the tournaments that start really deep, and the big field tournaments where you're much more focused on what everyone at the table is doing in that isolated scenario than you are in terms of like thinking about what your range needs to do versus Ike or Jason Kuhn. And it's a lot more, you're freed up. It's more like a cash game in the early stages where you're really freed up to kind of flat around and do what you want. And obviously living in Vegas, driving down to the Wynn for like a multi-day tournament, it's just a really pleasant experience where I'm just sleeping in my own bed, going back and forth. It's a type of thing, it went by so fast that I couldn't believe it when it was over. It felt like I had been playing for like 1 day or something. Whereas sometimes I have like, you know, a 1 day or 2 day high roller that feels like it's just never ending. So it's just really enjoyable, awesome place to be. And obviously it's nice when you get deep for that amount of money, where there were really good players left, but it's just not the same as having literally all the best players or young guys like like Maxime or whoever, you know, you're like, you don't want these guys trying to put you in spots every time when you're playing for big money, even if you feel like there's certain players, if you feel like you have a little bit of an edge on them, it's not the same thing as playing against people that truly, like the guy that got second in that tournament, it was truly his first time ever being deep in a tournament like that. So that's a big difference, right? So that all that stuff combined, just obviously very fortunate and really fun to go deep in that.
Yeah, I see the
Surprised to
guy who
see a
got
check
second.
back here.
That's pretty crazy. He has an $800 score for $1,700, another one for 1,700, and then he got second for 1.5. So right, you're not playing, Artur Mortarizian heads up. You're playing a guy that literally is probably like it's like an out of body experience for him, and can't believe he's there. And that's got to be a different completely polarizing thing.
He actually played tough, and he was a great kid, and he was really young, and all his buddies had pieces of him and flew out from, I think it was Seattle or Oregon. So anyway, the whole story for him was awesome, and we had guys that final table it's just not the typical lineup, and that's obviously makes my life a lot easier when you're playing for those stakes. And then like you already mentioned, it's nice to win 220 buy-ins instead of eight. Or my biggest score is I think I won 30 buy-ins or something, so it's really different in that regard.
And how's Lewis Spencer? I don't know. I've seen his name a bunch. I've never played with him.
He's a great, hardworking player. Yeah, he's boys with Chris Brewer, young, playing high stakes. Kind of starting to become. I think he started to become a regular, kind of like middle last year or whatever. Has some cash game background. Technically, trying his best to be very solid and sound. So yeah, he's another young, great player, just like all these guys. Interesting choice from Sven there to go big in the ICM scenario, just thinking that he covers Sergio. And that Sergio probably does have that offsuit 8x in the defend range, so he can target that with a hand like nines, very natural sort of decision. And this one, easy fold.
And what in this year? So travel schedule wise, you'll come play the 500K at that's the invitational in Bahamas, and then you also play the 25K 50 mil. I mean, I didn't realize that originally that is the plan. There's flights on GG for that, right? So it's like they have the live, you can do it, but they do have a lot of flights. I was like, how are they going to get that? And then I realized, oh, okay, so that they have it all planned out. Definitely will hit it, I'm sure, but it's still a crazy prize pool for a 25K.
And once you get to Bahamas, there's still 4 starting days where you can get like 4 bullets per day or 2 bullets per day. And so you got 8 bullets when you get down there. There's no, they're giving us a lot of different ways to get that prize pool fired up.
You're saying there's online fields you can play when you're in the Bahamas. That's like once you're there.
No, in the Bahamas, there's 4 starting days for that 25K, and then you can go 2 bullets per day. And they play down really far. Like they play down to 15% of the remaining field. So like basically, if you don't cash, you're just gonna fire one the next day. So it's gonna be a bit of a bullet fest, in my opinion. We just saw him 3-bet from Sven with the kings, and then a fold from Michaelitis with the 6s. I think possible 6s can continue sometimes or set 3-bet, if not quite a bit, when it's not that big. Here, this is probably going to go tiny c-bet call. I think even if Maxime is supposed to work in some checks there, he goes for the big c-bet, trying to accomplish something by. The thought here would be the guy that's defending has 5s through 9s, and I'm going to make him fold right away. And having a 4 in my hand is a reasonable hand to do it with, because you'd never really size up a hand class like that unless you thought you were getting some sort of 2-way interaction where you're like, okay, he's going to call ace jack and he's going to fold like 5s through 9s because those pocket pairs are really bad against on this texture versus this size. And then obviously having the 4 blocking those 2 pairs in the bottom set, and it's a reasonable hand class to do it with. I'm interested to see if he's going to continue to make something like 10-7 of hearts fold, and he is. And this guy, like I said in the beginning, he's got all the plays, and this is pretty sick, honestly. And it's the type of thing where he's playing poker, he's adding complexity. He's making every single hand like this indifferent right off the bat, right? Now, there is something to be said for the fact that when you're opening as the relative chip leader in that hand or close to it after Jow folds, when you're having all this ace-X that's completely disconnected, and you start using your king four suited, you start using that one, you start using your pocket threes. We're getting to be pretty aggressive with a lot of stuff that's nothing, but he's doing a good job so far. Or maybe people just let you run them over anyway, even if they're aware if you're over bluffing, right? So, like I anticipated, this guy's putting on a show so far today.
Yeah, that's that was. I mean, the king there's nice too, right? Because the king jack also he is at least had relative chip leader. He's being aggressive, but that is putting a whole lot of pressure. That's tough. It's tough to play against. You got the queen six. You're almost like, oh man, here we go. You call and then just it's not even a reasonable bet. He's just like really making you realize there's a SPR river of like one. You know, he's going to set you up for the river jam, and really you just see like he can't really call there. I mean, it's so hard, or you just like buckle up, but. What a nice illustration of the aggression and his game plan today as Sergio just got back in the game. And now Katsu, I'd say he's been the most quiet. It hasn't really got dealt in, hasn't got a lot of spots. I mean, he's played very little hands this final table.
He started at a stack depth where he would not be able to go out of his way to find V pips, right? And then he just didn't get dealt anything. So little bit of both there. Like I don't even remember a single decision point where he got dealt something that he could have done something with and just chose not to. This one's gonna be easy. Yeah, we're gonna see. It'd be interesting to see if Jow can just like maintain this massive chip lead and start as the blinds go up. It's gonna be that sort of like chip leader, chip vacuum thing where he just gets the raise, and when the open jams start, especially with these online payouts, it could be one of those things where he just gets to start opening and jamming and kind of run away with it. But we know Maxime is like going to do everything he can to not let that happen. He does not seem to me to be the guy that's like, I'm good with, you know, kind of letting Jow bust everybody and I'll get second. I think he's kind of ready to battle.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting shakeout of the moment. We still see pretty tight at the top other than Jow. We got 3.1, 2.5, 2.8, and then Sergio is on the short stack along with Katsu, who we said hasn't had a ton of decisions. Another blind on blind here. Is that fair to say the blind on blind is one of the most interesting and the widest ranges and places players can maybe expand or grow their game a lot, maybe are making a lot of mistakes or being too tight or not missing spots?
Yeah, what I was just going to say about this one is like, you know, if we think back to previous orbits, Sven had 1.5 million at 60K big blind, and Micheletis had 3 million at 60K big blind. So that was a really different spot where Sven had to play really tight aggressive, right? Like not a lot of V-pipping, a lot of maybe if he was going to play, he had to RFI because the chip leader can lean on him so much by raising that he doesn't have to play that many limp calls. And now one orbit later, we see the whole thing change where they both have around 50, or now they both have around 40, and they're just going to be able, he's going to be able to play a lot of limps, some raise first in, but many more hands in a more passive initial strategy. And that's all just dictated about how many chips he has, what the stack distribution is, what's average, right? And we've seen him do a pretty good job of going for some of these like barrels or delays. Obviously that one's a little bit of equity driven, but I would say to your comment, like the blind versus blind at final table is compared to like cash or chippy V where it's quite static. The entire thing is about what's my stack, what's the big blind stack, and how much am I covered by, or how much do I cover by? And that's what has led us to see a lot of these limps, a lot of these ISOs. In some cases, the guy's playing really heavy RFI with stuff like Queen 8 or whatever the case may be. It's all about the stack distribution. Now we see a massive jam here, but for 40 effective, I mean, you have to snap this off with ace queen suited.
Huge shove, huge call there too. Yeah, again playing some poker here, and this is
he has 10. Does he have 10 minutes?
Yeah, he's got a couple minutes to think about it, get the RNG right, see what's going on. When you say RFI, you mean raise first in. Those watching at home, we've been diving some pretty deep analysis today. Again, we got Nick 38 million in lifetime earnings, playing the 500K coming up. He folds, finds a fold.
Wow.
And Nick's not having it. I mean, I can see it. I can see how it's, I don't think that's like insane. it does seem like it would be a call, but that is a wild play and takes it down. But I mean, it doesn't seem like how mandatory. You're never folding ever there.
So the way I see that spot is, I think still like really good aggressive players, they're going to have ace king off in the 3-bet line because they know that it's a really good hand to 3-bet call, as opposed to like typically what happens is like you'll 3-bet ace king off in positional jam, something like ace queen or some suited ace x, or they'll 4-bet you with some stuff, and then you get to rejam, and that's really nice for you with ace king. So that typically you'll see that this is just going to shove here, and then you'll see that go into a 3-bet as a small blind for 40, right? And then you'll see maybe if you have some really hard, difficult to find jams, it might be more like ace queen. So if I have ace queen suited there in that moment, I'm just thinking like, okay, maybe I'm up against like tens or jacks, but if he's doing something crazy with like king queen suited or a suited ace, I'm probably doing decent, or I have the same hand a lot. I just don't think ace king is there. So I would be thinking I'm running pretty decent, and I would try to probably gamble and get to that's one too, where it's kind of like if Zhao and Maxime are going to remain really aggressive, I have this situation now to get like really close to Zhao, and maybe him and I'll play passive against each other and share the aggression. It's going to be a situation where it's me gambling there and trying to win that pot makes my life a lot easier in the future, right? So I think it's closer than what I'm making it out to be, but I would have called it there for sure. But I also think it's an odd spot where like we're not expecting to see a lot of like 40 BB jams there. So interesting check raise candidate here. I think it kind of satisfies some things. You can turn some pretty robust equity in jam with like the 8 of hearts, 10 of hearts. You have a couple different. The jack is obviously interacting. Wow, this is a sick play. The jack is interacting with queen jack. So somehow Micheletti sniffed that out real quick with the king jack. I assume he did a really good job of identifying that the king of diamonds and jack of diamonds, they block value, but they blocked 0 bluffs because the board was spade, heart, club. That was really nice though. So he's just thinking that the bluffs are going to come from spades, hearts, clubs. They're going to come from some low cards, like maybe a 6-7 or 6 or a 7 with a different kicker or whatever the case may be. So maybe some of that bottom pair, middle pair stuff, and king of diamonds, jack tends to block the king, queen, king, jack he might have defended. So he really crushed that one. That was sick. These guys are battling and playing hard. Now Sven has an option to check raise this amount of equity or put it in a call, and both are fine, and he's just going to have a mix, and he takes the passive line, which in this case, neither one is better as long as you're doing a little bit of both.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with, just a lot of great play today, and this is a dynamic hand, lot going on here. 6-8 pair, gut shot, flush draw, jack queen top pair. These guys are battling.
For me, I'm not building too much lead range there when I'm covered by so much on the turn here. Micheletti with a really difficult to find really good check raise. Now let's see if Sven. I mean, we're watching the hands, but like this seems like a candidate where
it wasn't
a check.
It was a bet raise, right? It wasn't check raise, was it? No, it's lead.
No, I'm saying he led. He led, and then he found a raise, which is really difficult linear raise. But now he's opened the door for Sven to take a bunch of equity and jam where he has perfect blockers. But he didn't do it, and I don't blame him. It's a difficult spot. But if you think about Micheletti's just going to check, and he kind of owned him. That was like perfect. But if you think about what that size for Micheletti means and what value hands he has, it very often is going to look like a hand where he's doing that to check back the river, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. And here we go. Mystery hand, very short stack, catch chow here. So this is sevens. We saw an epic mystery hand earlier today. Let's see this one. Top set, this theme today. People making sets in the mystery hand, also straight available. Similar-ish board before where 5-6 ended up being the nuts and we had a set of 3. So here, top set, 3-4, 2 diamonds, comes with the lead. These guys have been absolutely battling. Flush available, 9 of diamonds turns, 7 still pretty strong hand. Lose to straights and flushes though. But blind on blind, heads up pot. Still got to be confident. Gonna come betting.
I think I'm putting this in B80 on the turn when most of my opponent's continues would be 7x or a flush for that size at this point. Also, pre-flop, I wasn't sure if I probably would have been playing a good chunk of RFI there as covered by so much and having the added pressure of not being able to like limp call it off wide versus when I had like 22 BBs or whatever the case may be with cashew stack. So I wouldn't want to be limp calling a bunch. I probably would have put a lot of my range into with a straight and flush out there. I know it sounds crazy, but with top set here, blocking all the top pair and the 2 pair and everything like that, it feels to me that this was like a bit of a strange way to try to put the money in by just barreling it off into sort of a range that is going to be really flush heavy by the time you get to the river here. Yeah,
Wow.
also pre-flop, I think there's now.
Wow. Sick
It
hand.
is definitely different.
Yeah.
Before I even knew the result, I was thinking I would put this into like a check call in the turn quite a bit and do a better job of kind of increasing the likelihood that my opponent's going to make some bluffs or like linear kind of light value bets, as opposed to really shrinking his range and kind of taking some of my river equity away from myself, if that makes sense.
So
Now we
bluff. I mean, bluffs are.
But it is now at this point, I'm probably paying this because the way I structured the hand, I left myself in a spot where my opponent has a ton of offsuit 1 diamond bluffs available to them that they weren't going to fold on the turn. So I'll pay it. I don't think they're shoving 5-6 at this point either. Maybe 5-6 with a single diamond. So I'll probably pay at this price and try to see something like at 23 offsuit ace-x probably shove some Korean checks. Yeah, good fold. He did have the 7-6. Yeah, I think by the river that's really tough to fold because there's a lot of bluffs available, but I would have liked to see probably the sizes probably change quite a bit. Let's see if Jal can induce a 4-bet from Maxime here, where maybe like ace queen O would typically be a little bit of a 4-bet candidate in position here, but Maxime does have a penchant to try to find the most aggressive play, and this seems like for a guy that views the game that way, it would be a candidate.
Yeah, nice. Got rid of it.
Now we're probably going to see these 2 hands just go post flop with the same hand.
A lot of notes today. Definitely a fun one. Been fun and still 6 left. I want to remind everyone we got giveaways on my Twitter, Jeff Gross Poker. Put the tweet out. Going to give 50 cash. Also today, $100 and a $50 ticket within the stream here. So you want to be subscribed as well as hitting the thumbs up. And then I will give you a keyword later in the stream. This has been started pretty quick and then it slowed down a bit as we are 6-handed and sort of it's definitely got a little bit, been some great action. Just a couple short stacks and it really never ran away. Pretty tight at the top with the Michaelitis 5 million, 2.8 million, 6.5, and now 3 short stacks and 3 bigger. Jack queen position maybe can get folds. Is he gonna? They both have some showdown here. Blocking the nuts. Check it down.
Probably show it down now on the turn. Check. We'll probably see maybe like 150. Seems like the type of hand that is definitely worth a small value bet. Trying to get called by some 10x, even just a worse queen 9. I would assume one of these players is unit value bet at this point with a hand this strong.
Yeah. Does seem worth a bet, but really two very short stacks all of a sudden catch you. So there you go. He goes for a little bit bigger.
Yeah, he goes, well, for out of position, I'd expect 150, and then in position, we would see only 300-ish plus usually is how those work. Just because as an out of position player, with all the small betting out of position, you're completely fine to reopen the action if you get raised because you're relatively uncapped in terms of like everything that you can have, because all you did was defend check call flop where you're not going to check raise every time and then you bet small. Whereas an in-position player has more concerns with reopening action for tiny betting because they would play a little bit more polar throughout the course of the hand, right? So now on the check line, it doesn't make too much sense for an in-position player to reopen the action with like a B1, like betting 25% pot, because they would have played all their strong hands, and they would have some slow plays, but for the most part, when they get to the river, they're more towards the middle of their range. Whereas an out of position player doesn't really care about reopening action because they sort of keep their range intact for the most part throughout the hand, if that makes sense. So typically that's why we see, the tiny sizes on rivers usually happen out of position. Here, Job's gonna have an easy call. I'm gonna run and grab water real quick.
All right, again, still six-handed, played to a winner, no deal making. GG Millions. And sixes to ace six. Sixes in the lead. Scary board. No player thrilled with the board. Ace, queen, jack, eight. A lot of overs to the sixes. Ace six does have a club. Does block ace straight and does take a nice bet. And D. Michaelitis is getting cooking here. He is getting to a close position for the chip lead. Two kings here. Not much action for kings. Maybe. I mean, what are you gonna do? Limp? You got such short stacks. You want to just like guarantee gets in there, give him a chance to go all in. Do you min raise? Shoving, I mean, doesn't make a ton of sense, right? You at this strong of a hand, you probably want to have some. I guess that's the question. Is he just shoving if he's playing? So maybe he just wants to not look that way. But interesting. I'd be curious what Nick thinks on there to shove kings there versus limp, or probably doesn't have a limp range on that short of a big blind stack. I guess that was the thought process there. Ace five suited, playable hands, king eight suited, jack queen off, ace five, everyone with a little something. And a ace king in the small here. Good spot, but nothing much for the big blind. Hope you're enjoying. Again, hit that thumbs up. Be ready. I'm going to cue the first giveaway when we lose another player. So you want to get that with the subscription and the thumbs up. Be ready for that keyword. Appreciate Nick coming on today. Again, 38 million in earnings. GTO Lab, doing a lot of work with them. We're going to talk more about that today, and we can see the short stack fours all in. Nothing for anyone to call. And this is, yeah, we saw one spot. I was curious. Sergio last big blind, small blind, big blind. He had kings, and he just shoved. I was thinking, cats should just got to shove through. So he had even last. He had like 370, about what 5.5 blinds. I was just curious if there's any. Does Sergio really not have a limp off that stack depth? Is that the thought there? Why he would shove? Yeah, he just shoved instead of like min raise or limp. I just figured he'd try to do something more than shove there, but
yeah, I think it's just gonna be, you just put it in.
You just shove, right?
Okay. Don't remember what they did. This one looks like Sven has mandatory go with it.
Yeah, we're talking 7
and
blinds.
Also,
covers next shortest, sevens in good position. Again, we've seen a lot of nasty things today. There's another one. This has been literally the worst hand winning, although here, yeah, it's a one outer, right? It needs a 7 non-spade river 6, not going to be it. And this is been been pretty grim for the all-ins with the best hand today. One of those days, just sort of behind.
For the,
yeah,
for the shorter of the best hands today. So
no, the big hold really was the aces. Ace king suited got its money's worth there for 9 million stack potential, right? That was aces to ace king of hearts, the 2-heart Broadway opportunity that missed. But we have seen would have been a completely different final table. As it stands, we're 6-handed, and our the chip leader who was now is in start the day is in third. Sergio and Catch to about $1 million, and our short stack Sven now 370 after that. Unfortunate run out for him. Man, what a interesting final table here. King 4 boat, ace 3 of hearts. Does he go for some value? Sergio's got it slipped over here. He just has an ace on this board.
So yeah, Sergio sets the trap. With the 4, yeah. So this one just went check down to the river, right?
Yeah, this was real coy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sergio probably perceived that in position range to have a lot of showdown value. When it goes check on the flop. Nicolas can have a tough time here if he's thinking about kind of like what he has and how easy it would be for him to get over bluffed. If he folds this one every time, it would arrive at calling, right? Because it's kind of like he didn't check down a bunch of king X. So, and Sergio could potentially take something like a river 9 or a turn 4 and turn it into a bluff. But again, like we've seen some of this stuff today, is I think that these guys are doing a good job of understanding, like, yes, in theory, maybe I can't overfold to this extent, but do people actually have this bluff at this final table? And that's where we're going to see the Sven 7s fold, do a good job in some of those nozzle folds, just understanding, like, sure, maybe I have an indifferent call, but like what the things that needed to happen for people to have bluffs here just aren't realistic, and I'm just going to overfold. So here we do have probably what is, or in some cases, a reasonable 4-bet candidate, but usually will be like a little bit more suited and just fold. Pretty simple. And I think Naz's 3-bet is good, and that hand class is going to be really aggressive. Suited kings, especially with the 9 and lower. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see this one as a 4-bet candidate. And then you put the burden on, like, if these chip leaders are really 3-betting all this king X suited, all this ace X offsuit, some offsuit broadways, added some linearity with pairs, it makes their defense, they have a really difficult time to defend. So we always want to kind of think about things in terms of how, you can't just be really front end aggressive all the time and then just only respond with good hands. Otherwise people can pick on you. So not saying that's what Naza did, but that's where the idea of mixing in a little bit of offsuit ace X 4-bet. Also, obviously, in theory, we're going to see that maybe ace 5 suited or ace 4 suited is a jam, 5-bet jam from Zhao. So having that ace 5 blocking 2 suited combos of that rejam that we might see is why the hand might get in there. So pretty technical reason for why we would want to use ace 5 off. And now this is going to get pretty interesting for the rest of the table, because we have 2 big chip leaders. Sven's going to be folding here and then having 2.5 big blinds. So that's going to put a lot of pressure. So we're going to have like a, 11, not quite 12 big blind stack, and this tiny stack hanging around and making everyone's life hell, right? Because they just really can't do much. Even Sergio here, I'm interested to see what he'll arrive at. I would assume at this point with these short stacks, it's very difficult to build too much of a calling range. But this exact hand, something like king queen suited, ace jack suited, ace 10 suited, they do make a lot of sense.
Everyone has clubs and everyone has a pair. Ace 10, king 6, 9, 5. Ace 10 in the lead. Ace 10.
As Jow, I would be
shortest, yeah.
I think Jow is aware that, like, I don't even think Sergio is putting king jack suited into a flatting range. So this flatting range is like, to me, it's like always flopping top pair. Unless it has a king, of which the king of clubs would probably be my least favorite card to see bet, because I'm trying to get a fold from, like, obviously I'm not going to get a fold from king queen of hearts or king queen of clubs that didn't shove or do anything pre-flop. That's what I'm targeting. Otherwise, like, I don't think Sergio's flatting me with pocket eights pre-flop. That's a really easy fold with the way these other two stacks are, or pocket nines, or whatever the case may be. So I think he just put his c-bet into a range that, like, just flop top pair. Even though we're looking at the hand, but it makes a lot of sense where this flatting range is just like ace 10 suited, ace jack suited. It might quite literally be like one of the most narrow, well-defined flatting ranges that you'll see when somebody chooses to flat in this situation. If you think about how narrow they should be, and I wouldn't even be surprised if you're actually technically not supposed to play flats, because you're covered by so much by Jow and the big blind, and you have these two micro stacks. I would assume theoretically you're not really flatting much there, because you're just going to choose the hand that you're allowed to get in for value and 3-bet that one and have some bluffs. And maybe that I might have played a 3-bet fold there, but Sergio did happen to make a little bit of extra money. He's got to just kind of put this in and pray.
Yep. A7. A7 is going to get it in and get some decent value on his money. Now, queen deuce here to close the action is going to come in too. It picks up a gut shot. A7, chance to triple up here and more. Now a spade fade. A7, still the best hand. Needs to fade a 4 or a spade now.
Yeah. Jow just getting in there, trying to team up on this short stack.
Whoa.
And it worked.
Yeah. Queen of spade board is paired, but pretty high up in the range, and just gonna be winning this pot as it will go check. Can't see any no reason to bet here that can think of. Check.
I'd probably think that, you know, I'd want to sneak in a little value bet, just because, like, with the dry side pot situation or whatever you want to call it, the you know, Maxime's not really incentivized to bluff, or like the hands that he should bluff or bet with are probably very difficult to understand, because you need to understand where you're beating the all-in player and then maybe potentially generating some folds from the big blind. So that's tough, right? So that might have been one where Jow could have just, like, RFI'd a bunch of trash, because Maxime is so firmly in third now. This is one of those. This is probably one of these just any ace opens, and then if you happen to face resistance from the button, you just play really, really heavy check on flops, and doesn't matter. With the baby heart here, king high disconnected, I just pure c-bet tiny.
All right,
this one's probably gonna go raise, shove. Did not shove here, but potential 3-bet candidate from Sergio. But I would think he's mostly gonna fold, and then the big blind's gonna shove.
Just want to point out in the YouTube chat, GGWSOP space GTO lab space insert your GGPoker username. That will be for a $50 GG ticket. Going to do 100 as well in a little bit. That'll be the first giveaway today. So we do want to again thank Nick for coming on, and he is mentioning about GTO lab. Could you maybe give? I know I've asked Jonathan this. We've done a few different things with this. Could you explain what people can do and how they can engage with your content, but also, you know, what the website offers currently?
Yeah, so right now what we have available is a full ICM library with online payouts, live payouts, and a mixture of some payouts that provide coverage from everything from 9-handed all the way down to 3-handed. We've got over 12,000 sims where we spent a lot of time developing sims that would provide coverage so that when you go to look up a spot, it's very easy to find something analogous or even in some cases the same spot. And then, you know, the idea of that is that you can use it to study your ICM ranges. You can use it to prepare for final tables. You can use it to review final tables. In addition to that library, we're releasing a trainer where you can play against those sims as if you're playing a final table, which for me is the best way to prepare. Just actually getting put in the situation, making a decision, getting your scores in terms of how accurate you were, if you made a mistake or not. And the big thing for us is that we ran them down to the precision that for me and Daniel DeVoris's and John Jaffe's standards of preparing for final tables, right? So I know that what's there, I can trust it. And I know that when I look something up, that the answer is trustworthy and it's not something that's been like, run and not slightly converged. And then what we can expect in the future is a full chip EV library with pro videos from myself and Leon Sturm, John Jaffe. We're obviously still releasing these webinars with guys like Ike, and the goal is to have sort of a one-stop shop for chip EV, ICM, and pro videos that are from truly the best players in the world, and all of the resources are run to exact precision that we want, that we require for our own study and preparation. So yeah, we'll be building as the rest of the year progresses and early next year too, to hopefully get to that point where we have a full chip EV library, all of our pro videos, all of our ICM stuff, and we're constantly going to be updating with pro videos and new content with webinars and stuff like that from our top pros.
Very, very cool. Yeah, that is, I mean, we've had Daniel on, Jonathan, many times. Appreciate you coming on. Love to have you on in the future. I think it is, in a way, I don't know how you would put this in with your study sort of regimen of watching Tritons or these type of, obviously these players you battle with a lot. So I'm sure it helps, but it's a little different too, just scrolling through, watching some knockout hands and actually like watching, the tempo, the pace, kind of pick up everything. So I doubt you're watching like 3-4 hour videos generally of this. So I don't know how you feel commentary helps within to review versus some of the other ways you do it. How do you like that?
Yeah, it's great. I actually do watch most of the streams, honestly, but I usually watch them kind of like on 2x speed and pick out the spots. But doing commentary, that was interesting. Bluff by Sergio, which is stone nothing, and then Zhao had backed into a set. But it is very helpful to put yourself on the spot, ask yourself what you would do. And obviously, like, I'm giving my insight on the fly here. And I'm, of course, going to be wrong about stuff. And that's like the best way to learn, right? So a lot of times my friends and I will do this, the exact type of thing, say what we think. And, sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. But for me, watching something like this and being completely wrong about something, that'll usually help me remember it forever. So I like that part of it for sure. Just kind of thinking out loud and stuff like this. So here we're going to see, again, kind of like when Michaelitis gets flatted by Zhao here, he's got to be really, really passive on flops because they already have so much of the chips. They're not trying to play big pots post flop against each other, even Zhao with the chip lead. Now, this hand, if he had like the ace of spades 4, ace of spades 6, that might have actually gotten into a check raise. And even that one, I think technically probably does check raise a lot for a small size. I think he could have used that one for sure, but it's a difficult to find play. I think it is one of the things that happens when you're playing a really heavy check. You're going to have to pull some nice clean bluff candidates that will give you bluff on flush completers. Has one low card, has the ace. It kind of satisfied all the criteria, but I don't blame him for check folding it. It's tough, and it might just not be the one there, but I think it probably was one of the ones that you can use a lot. We're seeing now probably Zhao gonna increase the post flop aggression versus all these stacks and just kind of go for all these different C bets. Now that's a crazy turn card because Zhao's going to be thinking that he has a lot of equity to lean on here. Michaelitis' defend range should not be very tight because they're both such big stacks and it was a min raise. So Zhao now has a lot of that 2x, 9x, 6x stuff like 7-8 to target, even ace highs and his own queen highs. So I would assume exactly what's going to happen here is we see a big bet, and then Zhao's not going to have a very exciting river bluff.
Yeah.
He might be doing something where he's clearing out all those hands I just mentioned now, and checking a lot of rivers. So this is a crazy spot. And
A spade would be just insane. This could be like a record. I mean, this is oh my goodness. Whoa. Whoa. This is nasty.
that is a wild, that is nasty. And I think Zhao did a good job of playing the hand, and
man, look at the
now
class. Just check it over, and now, I mean, this is how big does he go, and can you fold? Like, I just does he? Man, this is one of the biggest pots potentially in GGMillion history. We could be seeing like a 12 million chip pot or so. This is, I mean, is there what? Depending, I guess he's made some insane folds, but
his size has to be huge because his value at this point is so narrow. Like, I think especially with his hand is perfect for betting big. The fact that he went this size is going to make it really difficult for him to fold, because now we're opening the door for some additional bluffs. I don't think anyone thinks that someone's going to put a queen high as a human. I don't think that there are many. Wow. I mean,
wow.
How did he?
Wow. There it is. 11 million chip pot. 11 million. That is a crazy hand right there. Nuts, second nuts, and whoa, the Greg all in emoji though. That is a flame right there. Look at that. Greg goes all in, and that is wow. Wow, 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 wow. What a nasty hand. Is there any other way it's about that? I mean, he's just got to put it in.
I mean, I thought that the timing of both decisions was crazy. Like, I don't think that you're ever sitting there with like ace of spades 9 as Michaelatis.
Wow.
Or
we got a knockout. Don't blink there. Kings, king, queen. Zhao gonna get a knockout. Little rebound from that nasty cooler. And now we got ourselves a four-handed affair with 11 million and about 6 million. Really like 6 million. He's almost got double the combined chips in play. So this should be a very interesting
this is where
event.
All these guys have basically like identical risk premiums, or Sergio has a little bit less, and the chip leader is just going to be able to go absolutely crazy here, because a big metric of like how aggressive am I allowed to be as a chip leader is how much is my chip lead in terms here, right? Like if I double, Sergio, okay, I still have 9 million. I'm probably allowed to go nuts right now, right? Even with a spot like this, like you might see in theory, some just open jamming from the cutoff there. Maybe not with ace 2, but with a bunch of different hands, because the call off ranges, they're all so close. Like, one of those guys needs to take a stand and say, I'm going to make the call off and put myself in an even potentially worse situation, because now I'm going to have 4.6 versus 9 million, and I still can't do anything, and there's 2 short stacks. You know what I mean? So when all these guys are similar like this, it puts a lot of pressure on their call-off range, because like what we talked about in the beginning, you want to think about like, does it make sense for me to gamble here in terms of the future game? And here, when you gamble against an 11 million chip leader, you just put yourself in a situation where you're even in worse shape, right? Because we all know what it feels like to be like the mid stack, four-handed versus a giant stack and 2 short stacks, where you literally can't do anything because you got to outlast the shorties. So now it's a situation where the chip leader wants to lean on that, go crazy, because no one wants to double up into an even higher risk premium situation, right? Whereas if they were going to double up and be equal with the chip leader, maybe they would have a little bit more appetite for risk, because they would be actually kind of like unlocking themselves from that spot or escaping from that spot. But here, there's no escaping when the guy just won that size pot. What I was going to say about the other pot is not that it wasn't the most insane cooler, but I thought that the speed at which both players made a very complicated decision was really crazily fast, right? Like, yeah, I mean, Zhao can't fold, but also just like if Michaelatis was in a situation where he had that ace of spades plus pair type hand, or whatever the case may be for his bluffs on the river, you would think that he obviously has some moment of like genuine consideration in terms of just like bluff catching with it. So he just like kind of instantly jammed with the nuts, and I thought that was definitely an interesting part of it.
That was,
And
yeah,
now
you're right. Both players very fast with the big decisions. And here
I
the
thought
king
we were
queen.
gonna have, yeah, I thought we
Sorry,
were
go
gonna
ahead.
have a chance at like, oh no, I thought we were gonna have a chance at like, okay, the guy's tanking, and we could discuss the hand a little bit. Then all of a sudden he was all in, and then I'm like, okay, Zhao's gonna tank for a second. Then all of a sudden all the chips were all in. So not to say that they shouldn't have been, but the timing was certainly interesting there. We saw another one of these linear turn raises from so now it's changing a little bit where the shorter stacks, they might get a little bit more aggressive now that there's some separation between Zhao and the two short stacks, and Zhao is in the worst spot versus the chip leader. He kind of got lucky here that he didn't choose to RFI or do something else because he would have ran into it. Now Vaskerensky probably wants to ISO this one and try to get it in, and just easy fold.
Kind of interesting to look how things started today. For chip leader now is in fourth, tied basically, let's say, for third, actually. So that's still in four-handed. João Vieira was in second. He is currently in second. D. Michaelitis was in eighth off 25 blinds, and he is massive chip leader. And then Sergio A, who was in seventh, so he's in there tied for third. So a little bit of a kind of interesting run out today. And I don't think did any of us have Michaelitis? Did you have? We didn't have him, I don't think, right? I had you.
I got my last remaining guy is oh, I've got two, right? I have Ido and Maxime.
Yes.
And I lost somebody busted first.
Yeah, and I got Zhao. Yeah, I got Zhao left. So that's our sweat for the wager today. This is the interesting play with such a lead. These are always kind of how to finish out, right? You're like, no, you're supposed to be super aggressive. You don't want to, just give it away or double, like give a cavalier double, but you also know you're supposed to be, really in the control driver's seat. How do you approach this when you're the big chip leader in this sort of situation? I mean, you're just
there's a couple different things there's a couple different things you can do. We can see he's already erring on the side of one of them. Like in some of these cases, there's some, substantial open jamming strategies into three other stacks or two other stacks, but some of the bottom of the ranges are, this one's actually closed with 14 in the, I guess you can just put this one in. Yeah, that's close. That's a tough one. So what I was saying is, as a big chip leader, you can go with the route where you're aware that there are these big shoves, but you're going to min raise a lot, which we've seen Michaelitis min raise exclusively right now. Because in some cases there are big shoves, but it might be versus some lineups just better to keep raising and sort of like protect your chip lead or maintain your chip lead, however you want to call it, and not risk like playing that open jam, getting called, losing your chip lead. But in this case, even when you get your open jam gets called, you remain a huge chip leader. So I'd be doing a combination of a crazy amount of min raising and a lot of open jamming, just leaning on the fact that like Zhao can't call it off wide, and the other two guys have 15 BBs. Here we're probably going to see jam fold. Yeah, like I don't think we want to. The other thing we don't want to do is when we have the whole table on lockdown is call these spots off with king high, because like it's not very exciting to get it in versus like ace four off. Yeah, I don't think I like that one.
He calls it. He's going to have a great situation, although you said a little wide. And even part of the problem is even when you get this dream scenario, you're putting chips at risk and then not guaranteed, as he is going to need a big moment there for Sergio. So this is going to take it from two super short and one short to two semi-short and one short. And now a little bit of that first part of the puzzle. Big swing there for everyone involved. You can see the pay jumps lower left of your screen. Would have been three-handed with 13 million, but now it's 10, 3, 2, 7, 1.5. So a little bit of a swing there. And you said you didn't like it from the get. He did have him dominated though.
No. I mean, like, I think the idea I think the idea of not doubling that stack there is kind of nice, but like when you have this big of a chip leader, it just doesn't really matter that much because they're both still the 26 and 30 BB stack are just completely handcuffed still, right? So I do think that there's some merit to, especially if you're closer in stack to folding the king queen, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I would probably err on the side of just like maybe not calling off marginally.
So you think you plug that one in? You would put that? You think it's what, king queen suited, or you need like ace 10 there? So like ace. How wide?
The ace is better. The ace is definitely better. The pairs are better. King high is probably dicey, but suited for sure you're going. But I think king queen offsuit is probably the pip.
Right, it's right on the cusp. Yeah, that was hey, this guy just Sergio. You said he's been running well, playing well. Won the 50K WSOP at the WSOP this year. Just won a 10K GGMillion special edition bracelet just 2 weeks ago. Last week was off, and he is on fire today. But down to four-handed, was in 7th to start. Now he is 2 of 3. 2 of 4, I should say. 2 of 4, right in the mix for another big score. Wow, just crazy run.
This is an interesting lead here from Zhao. They're close enough in chips, and it's low enough where the ace-x offsuit opens are connecting quite a lot. But he does get a fold from jack-8 backdoor, which has straight and flush draw backdoors. I think that I wouldn't lead that spot typically, and I don't think I'd fold the jack-8 backdoor versus the lead. Here we'll probably see a jam and a very close decision. He's not folded. I think that's quite close there. As the last play stack for 15. Yeah, that one's probably just right there. This is gonna go raise, jam, small blind fold. Yeah, that king 10, I'm surprised that it snapped. I mean, probably the one, but
A7, king, queen. Close. All very close. Game of inches.
king, queen, yeah, you just put it in, and then A7 is the easy fold.
Yeah, king, queen enough, and that's why A7 suited here. This is yeah, a little bit of roulette at this point with the stacks and the payouts, and very close. Interesting to see different strategies on players, and who disregard sort of the book or how close to go. And there's definitely a mixed strategy. Not everyone plays the same, but yeah, that was a big moment there for Sergio. So 3 million now. A7 suited here, sees the min raise from Zhao, thinking what to do.
See 3-bet here from Sergio. It's probably like 550 or something. Oh wow, I wouldn't skip that one as a 3-bet. I would just 3-bet that one every time. It seems to have really good properties, right? Like you have obviously a suited ace, but you also have a card that's below the pip of Zhao's like offsuit opens, like the 7. So I like to see those middling ones that have a lot of clearance, just 3-bet.
So Zhao, again, I believe 20 final tables, no wins. Vas Krasinski, 0 wins. Started as chip leader. And who else then? We got Sergio with 2 wins. And Michaelitis with 2 wins.
For Zhao, I would have thought that the 2 high cards is enough to just basically pure c-bet the flop versus a chip leader defend that has like 6-4 off in it. This one, it went raise, call, check, check. Now Zhao's in another one of these bluff catcher spots versus a tiny size. And it just feels like value all day. The queen is probably not great when we consider the queen 9 type. But again, hard one not to pay off, and he seems to have had an incredible amount of good feel and discipline in those river spots today, barring the one with 10-6, which is just super tough anyway.
Yeah, let us know where you're watching from out there. Nick's out in Vegas, I am in Miami, and we see a lot of familiar faces, some new faces, almost 2,000 watching. One more $100 giveaway coming up here today, so be ready for that. And we will play to a winner. People ask, no deal making. GGMillion's pure winner, no deals here, as we are four-handed, and it is going to be, you never know.
Slightly covered into what is for sure a tight button open. I think this 5-4 is quite a loose defend, especially with the small ante. This is an idea though. Taking a card that has, one card below the 5 that doesn't interact with that opening range and using it as a check raise on a monotone board so that then you have some bluffs later on, and also just as like a value protection play. And then I would expect he's probably going to go with check on the turn here. And it's probably going to have a difficult time. He won't face block from Sergio here, but he would have a difficult time if he faced like a 330 type bet. He'd have to call again. And now he might actually just go for 300 himself and maybe get called by something like just bare ace high. He goes for check. Yeah, I mean, that one, I think the defend is probably with that hand class quite loose when you're dealing with a range that's opening into a chip leader small blind. Maxime was below both. This one's just going to raise and take it. This is another raise and take it. So he's already recovered from almost, he's still now for it's 30. Yeah, Sergio's in a rough spot now in that small blind. He's probably doing something like, yeah, the pips that he has to go up are quite high. 17 in the cutoff is a little bit much to play jams, especially at 50K ante. So I think I like that one.
Nice spot to be. 10.7 over 100 big blinds, four-handed, ace jack suited, king queen. Another similar one, a little more to play for here. 3 million to start. Let's see, does he flat this, or I mean, he doesn't really want to.
Yeah, I'd like to see it go call, and maybe if you're jamming and 3-betting range is a little bit more polar. Now with Sergio, we just need to think about what's this flatting range, and it's a lot of king jack off, king queen off, queen jack off, ace 10 off, potentially even pocket eights and pocket nines, not benefiting a ton from trying to get it in pre. So that's a pretty smart check from Sergio, probably coming with almost all check call for that reason. And let's see if now Michaelitis wants to force folds from stuff like the non-backdoor card is really good for him to start bluffing there when Sergio would have had all that like big ace X backdoor in the check call line. But yeah, if he thinks about what he has to bluff with, I think since he's probably being really aggressive with ace X suited, ace X offsuit pre, low pairs pre, for the turn, he might arrive at the fact that like king, queen, nothing is probably quite a good bluffing hand. Duke does give up correctly on the river, which again, we don't really have too much else to bluff with. That seems like a decision that would mean that he's not bluffing that spot much at all, just because king jack got there, ace jack got there, all your pairs would check again. What else do you have type of thing?
Yeah, that's always interesting to me when a spot where you kind of should bluff or supposed to, but you make an exploitative or you make a good check based on what the player has, even though you maybe should bluff. So that's always, do you ever, how do you pull the trigger sometimes in a spot, like let's say the win, that tournament, the 10K you won, where you're like, man, this guy's, how do you veer from that, right? If you like kind of know you're supposed to bluff, but you actually think the guy's going to call. I mean, that's, how do you gauge that?
Typically,
all in here.
Yep. Yeah, this is super easy. Typically for me, like a spot like that, I'm just gonna ask myself, for me, I think like that one based on my flatting range, I'm kind of just like, I might need this one or else I'm just never bluffing,
This could shift stuff pretty important one here if he can fade the river, and now all of a sudden we go from a very different situation 3.7 3.7 1.5. So the shorter stacks are chipping up, and that big lead getting a little less. I mean, still comfortable, still has about 50% of the chips in play.
It actually does make for that, like, obviously he wants to win that pot, but when it's not really changing how limited his options are in any given hand here versus the chip leader compared to being, he was more freed up before this double. Now being over 2x as much as Zhao has, but still being significantly covered by the chip leader, he's using 7-5 suited here. This is just a stone exploit. Like, there's no chance that he thinks this is a 3-bet. He just thinks that he's riding a little bit of momentum. Here, the shapes that you see are typically just like an ace X, king X, queen X. Usually in line with whatever your value hand is, you'll have some of those offsuit hands with bluffs. But obviously, this one to me just looked like an obvious defend. Now, Michaelitis, when he's opening that chip lead this wide, he probably needs to flat a hand like this, which might sound a little bit weird. It does cover all those bluffs. I would just flat this one. But if he really thinks that Maxime's going to overdo it, he can just rip it. And then that's Maxime's exploit. He just thinks he's getting overfolds from everyone everywhere. But if you think about how wide you're opening and then folding a hand that's that high up, that strictly dominates most of the standard bluffs.
Yep.
It is quite a big fold with ace 9 off.
Yeah. Yeah, Maxime's been impressive. That it's like he's so aggressive, and it's like, it's coming. And he still gets he just kind of still goes for it almost always, and it's very 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 tough to play against that. And he seems to know also how to control some, as we see fours and deuces here, four-handed. Sergio on the button.
This is interesting. This might just go raise, shove the worst pair, and then fold, or just fold. Yeah, that makes sense. I do think Sergio probably has to raise like fives and get it in versus Zhao.
Interesting.
It's possible fours was a raise at 30. And just like size up, get the small blind out of there, eliminate Zhao's ability to defend, get it in versus him if you have to.
And some real hands here.
This one might just go shove and then rejam, although I think Zhao does need a little bit. Yeah, he didn't even think about it, but I think he needs a little bit more with. He has fold equity still. He's got like 10. So yeah, no, I like it, especially since Michaelitis has shown that he's just playing min raise only type strategy, it seems like. So
we're going to see 5, very similar to that early ace 5 of spades to kings, where we saw Victor go out in 9th place. Let's see if queens can hold. It has been an absolute pipe show for the best hand today. Can it fade now? A spade or an ace, or else we will lose. I'm sorry, we'll see a double. Let's see. Queens are going to be a hold. 4 not enough, so we will see a knockout there. 3-handed all of a sudden. Podium guaranteed for everyone. Yao's going to have to wait. 20 final tables, no title. Impressive resume. The #1 player in Portugal live, and as well a absolute crusher, and has a ton of results here, but no title in the GGMillion. 3-handed poker now, 5.3, 3.4, 8.2. So still holding true about half the chips in play for Michaelitis.
You can see Michaelitis lean on Maxime with a 3-bet with this hand class sometimes, for sure. Now we're seeing again Maxime's firm 2nd place. So the presence of Ido is just putting a lot of pressure on Maxime versus Michaelitis. So we'll see some of those dynamics happening. And yeah, this one, the other thing we'll see too is that, like, the chip leader versus cover stack, he's going to defend really wide. We see a nice check back there. I like seeing some of these backdoor hands that can withstand a lot of pressure on different turn cards check. I would expect we're not seeing a lot of different delays with a hand like this, but I'm wrong. I would have just worked this one to showdown. I guess he's trying to go for some clearance with first, like, a 9-10 type hand. He does seem to have this read, which is probably correct on the population, that they are really weak in the check line. And so we've seen some of those stabs, like with the ace queen versus the sixes. This hand, this is a really clean one to fold, having the 6 blocking all those check raises. Yeah, it seems like if we're paying attention to the things that he likes to do as an exploit, it would be maybe we've seen a little bit of 3-betting, like way too much, way too linear. That's just good. And we've seen some check delay lines that he thinks probably he doesn't face a lot of aggression with. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go with this one as a 3-bet candidate. More so you use like the lower ones, and obviously ace X and king X are first in line, and then his defender probably would have been around the offsuit 8. And candidate RFI, Sergio, even though he's in the last, still, but yeah, he's playing tighter there, but wouldn't be surprised to see him put it out in a little bit of a raise.
Got 1,900 on right now. The $100 GGPoker ticket giveaway. GGWSOP space Bahamas space into your GGPoker username. If you don't have a GGPoker account, your jurisdiction doesn't allow, give it to a friend, split it with a friend, do whatever you want, but put a username that is a GGPoker username. Sure, if you're playing poker, you know someone that is eligible for that. Hope to see you in the Bahamas. Nick's going, I'm going 25K, 50 million, flights online, satellites available, I believe 10 bracelet events. Triton 500K invitational, a lot of good reason to be down there. I mean, so much poker. How are you going to approach that? Do you play the side stuff too, or are you just going to focus on the 525K and to see how it goes? Do you have a plan, or you play it by ear?
That one's unique in that the first tournament is a 500K buy-in. So obviously the first couple prelims aren't an option for me. I'll probably go down a little bit early just to make sure that I'm kind of on the schedule and just ready to go for that one. And then that one's going to kind of dictate how the rest of the week goes. But for there's not really a lot of sides that I would be skipping, because it's like a 500, and then there's a 25K, a 10K, 100K, 50K, and then it'll already be 2 weeks have gone by. So I don't even have the option to skip anything because it's all so big. We did see an interesting check back there from that 10 deuce on the Jack 8-6, where these guys are doing a good job of understanding that they're not just going blind aggression. I like to see that. They with the ISO and then the Jack 8-6, 10 deuce, it's easy to kind of overdo that one. He did check it back and save himself some money versus that Sergio limp call.
Do you have
Here we can see him do both.
Do you have any aspirations for the all-time money list? Do you look at that? You're number 17 now, 38 million in live career earnings. You're up to from recently going up from 19 with $5 million from the update I see here. Do you look at that stuff? Does that motivate you, or just no? Doesn't even? Did you check that stuff?
Well, if I were to get on the all-time money list in a short period of time, that would mean I made a ton of money. So yeah, from that regard, that'd be pretty sweet. But in terms of like accolades and stuff, I don't find it important. But yeah, I would like to obviously have as many results as I can going forward over the next few years, especially because all this stuff is getting so big and so much more competitive. And yeah, but in terms of the money, the all-time money list, it's not really how I want to, not really something I'm paying too much attention to.
Makes perfect sense. I see Jonathan Jaffe also third there, Massachusetts. Brian Altman, great player. Anthony Zeno. You got Daniel Coleman, my brother, 29 million. He's been quiet. He ascended quickly and then sort of just took off. But he was in first forever, like years and years and years after he retired. And also back then it was obvious. Well, similar thing. Like he won one for what was it, 16 million or something crazy. But otherwise it was hard to amass so many cashes in a short period of time. He truly did crush. We're seeing things getting off the rails here a little bit with we're seeing Robbie J. Lou tributes. We're seeing tributes today to Jack 4 off, just deciding to just put that one in the bag in there. Yeah, I'm gonna.
It's interesting Go ahead. It's interesting to have a 6 here, because typically ace-6 is the bluff, and Maxime has decided that this guy's overdoing it, or it's one of the main bluffs. But yeah, I mean, I guess Michaelitis is just thinking you got to do it with something. And I'm going to use Jack 4. I think sometimes it doesn't matter a ton as long as you're bluffing. As long as you're doing it kind of the right amount of time, like these spots are pretty wide. So you're limping a lot, you're getting ice a lot, kind of mix your stuff everywhere. But Jack 4 does seem a little bit far away from some of the hands I would use typically, especially if you get called. Not very fun. It's not a very fun hand to go post flop with, but let's see if Vaskrenski uses this like pretty heavy check back, pretty heavy turn probe on the or pretty heavy turn delay on the check line. This board makes a lot of sense to do it. He does go for a little bit of a bigger size here. So I think the idea there is, oh wow. We've got a Jack X in Maxime's range that could be a bluffing candidate, right? We would probably prefer to have heart spade, of course, or whatever the case, but see now, I wonder if so Michaelitis goes for like a huge lead here.
Is that with him having the spades? Does he, if he had 5-6 of clubs or something? Not that he would. I mean, how much of a difference does it make that he's got the
I mean, it honestly makes a difference. It makes a difference in the other way because, of course, the hands that can actually put money in versus you, one of those categories would be spade draws. So I'd rather do it with 5-6 of clubs and not have any flush draw cards so that I can increase the continue. I would say if we paid attention to all the timing from Michaelitis, his timing has seemed quite honest. Like when he has a weird decision to lead, he takes a long time. When he has a close value bet, he takes a long time. He had the nuts, he snapped, shoved all in. This is certainly an idea to check raise. I think it's a little bit weak to call the spade. Oh no, they're blind response. Sorry.
You can see the chess clock down to 1:40 there, so may not come into play, but has used a lot of that clock. And again, got to hit the thumbs up and be subscribed and announce a $100 ticket winner here in a few moments. We are gonna be playing to a winner, man. This is nothing guaranteed here now. Still wide open, three-handed.
We're probably gonna see a bluff here. I would assume this is gonna go big bluff, and then maybe tiny raise. And he goes kind of medium. Okay. So now this is like a mandatory raise, of course. I wonder if we'll see with the naked ace of spades, with a 2, it's probably a candidate for raising again after Maxime raises, just because you obviously have a bunch of nut flushes in this line. So let's see if he takes some time, he's thinking about it. He's not posturing, and if he had snap folded, it wouldn't be something that was on his radar. He might do it. I mean, you're gonna have nut flushes here. Maxime is gonna have a variety of different raises, especially with queen, maybe some queen X versus this size. And now he can put it in and put him in a really difficult spot. And then Maxime would have.
Wow.
Yep.
Goes for it. And our start of the day chip leader is put to the test.
But the problem is you can't really fold 2 spades here, or and probably not the 9, because I don't think Michaelitis is pulling a lot of block jams from a 9, right? You want to kind of think about, is this guy ever? Yeah, okay.
He calls chip leader to start. Chip leader at the moment, 3-handed. Michaelitis has been on a little ride, but he is now with 4-handed was a massive chip leader. He is now short 3-handed, so not gone his way from the chip lead status.
He's gonna bust. He's gonna bust.
Yeah, this could be a bad little moment. 2 hands for him here as ace 10 and now ace king suited, as Vaskrenski gets another great spot. We've seen a lot of suckouts today, a lot of worst hands winning. And ace 10.
I would have to say, like, Vaskrenski seemed to have kind of navigated this like very well throughout from start to finish. He seems like an incredibly sharp player with his exploits and also just like what he does. So he gets flatted here. I wonder if he's going to go with just jam flop, and maybe you just happen to somehow get it in okay, or he's going small. I think both are reasonable. This makes in positions life very difficult. The smaller you can go. See, like I don't even know if that's a fold versus B10. That's probably not a fold. The ace 10.
Lines
so
are up
now we're gonna see it
40.
flip.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now that we have a chip leader, I think if Vaskresensky had the other chip lead before when we were forehanded, we would have seen more open jamming, and now we're gonna see what he can do with this one, and I think we're gonna see a big chunk of open jamming. I think that queen 4 is close. There's something to be said for leveraging your short stack blind versus a smart chip leader that is aware that the presence of Michaelitis is actually good for him right now. So we might see chip leaders call it off like a good chunk tighter than they're supposed to keep this situation going. Now Sergio has to jam this one.
All right, when we get heads up, I'm going to announce the winner. Give you guys time to hit that thumbs up. Almost 200 thumbs up. We got 2,000 watching. Can do better than that. If you guys are enjoying Nick here, if you're enjoying the show, the action, all the pageantry, we're having an amazing show. And at level 35, the hand number does not go down. So just letting you guys know that that's a minor issue, but that is to be noted as we are seeing another post flop position of Sergio with the best hand, getting some chips in the middle here.
Yeah, I think I would have just shoved free by like a huge margin. I'm not sure why he wants to build a limp there. Not that you can't limp anything. I just mean this specific hand classes. Like to me, it seems like pretty easy to just put it in.
Yep. Well, that's a nice extra little backup and reinforcement. The 10-7 making trips on the river, 5-7. Now a little harder to get away.
We'll probably see him just go like 480 or something.
Yeah, 5-7 though. You don't, it's actually right. You have no diamond, no jack, king, 9. Yep, 490. You know a couple things about sizing as Michaelitis has got to be talking to himself a little. Still top 3 start of the day. I
think he's got to pay this. I mean, like Sergio, it depends what he thinks. It's a weird spot to have these limps this short, but like if he thinks that Sergio is capable at all of having a similar hand class but different, like 7-8 or 6-8. Clearly, Sergio built an idea where he was going to play kind of a little bit more hands for limping than jamming, and then he see that into a board where he's trying to target a bunch of auto folds. Like I don't think it's hard for Sergio to just like have a bluff and then pick it back up on the river, and then but another good fold there from Michaelitis.
$6-10 suited, taking his chances. Queen deuce off, queen high. Not a lot of blinds, but does fold.
Pretty exciting spot for Maxime to just want to keep that short stack crippled and just suck all the chips from Sergio so that they go heads up with like Sergio having no chips,
Right.
So he's gonna open jam this one. Or you would think that's the play. It's a pretty easy one.
Yep, Sergio getting whittled down a little bit in this affair. 13 million now, 3.6 and 800. Queen deuce suited, queen 7 off.
Queen 7's got to shove, and then he can decide how close he wants to play to equilibrium with this call, or if he wants to do what we're saying. Because obviously for 6.6, it would no. Yeah, so I think he's going to do kind of what I'm saying, where he's like overfolding on purpose to keep jamming, preserve the situation. Like, I'll just jam this one versus Sergio probably, especially since he RFI'd tiny with Queen X last two. This one's strong enough to just shove. So, yeah. Button spot's gonna be, well, he can't do it there, and you can't go crazy raising into the big blind because like when you actually get to put the jams in, this one's tough. This is probably a call. Yeah.
Yeah. King 7 suited has the lead to be heads up. Can it hold 2 hearts? But a 9 has come, needs a king or a heart, or now just a heart with the river, else we will still continue 3-handed. And that is actually going to be kind of interesting to level the stacks. And then we have 13 million, 2 and 2, effectively pretty much a dream scenario. I'm going to announce the winner here in a second once we get heads up. So we are still 3-handed. King 6, King Deuce. Things all different now. This has got to be the most fun as a poker player, right? For a title to be this big of a lead with the 2 guys with the exact same stack. It's just sort of a matter of how do you put the pressure and how wide, and this guy seems like he knows how to do this. So he does give up though the 9-3 off.
Yeah. It's like, it's not the type of thing where there's like when you're 3-handed and now they're equal, the like open jam strategies still exert an extreme amount of pressure. But when it's just like folded and Sergio's the big blind, he's the small blind, and they both have the same, it's difficult to exert, Sergio still has to fight back at that point because there's not a short stack putting pressure on him, right? We're going to see a flip here and see if Sergio busts or not. But you know what I mean? It's like if one guy is actually shorter than the other, you can lean on the one guy, but as soon as they're equal, you can lean on them both at once with a lot of jams and raises. But once one of them is isolated, they still need to battle a lot. So that's why you see him fold that like 9-3 in the small blind, or fold that button with the 9-4.
Big sweat here to be a heads up match. 6s, that is going to need runner for just quads, daily quads. That's conclusive. And that is GG Sergio going to have to settle for third. Came in short, just picked up 1.9 million in this tournament a couple weeks ago, WSOP edition. He is no one going to feel sad for Sergio. Nice showing as well. He's been a commentator, been on the show as a guest. Appreciate that. Again, Sergio, another 200K going your way. 266 now, guaranteed, playing for a bit. We're going to announce the winner. Give me another few seconds. Give you a chance. Hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Nick. And let's see if this can just be a smooth closeout, or we're going to get a battle for Michaelitis. So we're either going to have a first-time winner from our chip leader. You have him. I think you just won, right? You won the dinner, because I'm basically, my guys are out. We did it a little different than normal, so no one left to compete with here, as we are going to be, again, we are going to see one of the two here. We're going to see a 3-time winner for Michaelitis or a first-time winner for Vaskrskensky.
The heart will end it here.
Yeah, heart would put us on our way. Otherwise,
to see if he might just jam this hand on the turn too. Like, I think it's very likely that he does, because Michaelitis can just have a bunch of like king whatever in the bluff, and yeah, it's easy.
That's semi-bluff into the nuts, but still equity to chop or win. 23%, not going to be. So let's play a little more poker. 4.8 to 12.6, going to tighten things about a 3-1, maybe a little less, 4.6. So yeah, he's got a decent lead, and it is still a bit of poker here as jacks and heads up poker. What would you say? What percent of time with this distribution and based on these players, what do you think the 12 mil stack wins? How often?
Just however many, all skill being equal, however many, percentage of chips in play. Let's see.
Okay, so still no guarantee, but this is not a
I mean, it's so crazy swingy. I think the win rates heads up are way smaller than people think. And yeah, a lot of stuff can happen. Even if somebody was terrible, they still get to win a lot. It's just the way it goes, right? But this is a little different than live poker, because you have this tiny ante. So you're already seeing these guys, like, they're all their buttons so far, they've played raises.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times you know, in the BB ante at these depths, you see a lot more limping. We're gonna get action here for sure. I don't know if it's gonna go check raise call or check call, and then we'll see a barrel on the turn, but we're definitely getting one street of a big pot here. And then depending on what happens on the turn, 6 would be action. Now 6 of diamonds or 7 of diamonds, probably just gonna go bigish bet and then fold. Probably 1.2 and fold or something. Yeah. Getting closer to even.
Yeah, less than 2-1 lead. Just looked like it was a runaway, but it really wasn't. And the blinds are 71-40, 45 seconds on the shot clock. Actually, both players sub 45 seconds. We have seen once before a 0-0 shot clock often. Just to remind anyone who hasn't seen before, that means that you get 5 seconds per street. You're not eliminated. You don't, you know, you're not just all in. It is a just no time bank to think at all on streets. You get 5 seconds per situation. As you see here, the clock doesn't start until about 5 seconds, I believe. So that could come into play. Always, again, disadvantaged, no doubt, to not have that, as we see each player with the pair. Hard to make a pair in poker of no limit hold'em. Heads up, both players here have that top pair, bottom pair. And
yeah, you'll definitely see probably like at least, you know, another turn barrel go in, and ElkY is feeling like he probably has a call with the king 2 on a lot of different turn cards. That one's a little bit more connected.
yeah, tough to be folding pairs, heads up. But I mean,
I think this one with no backup, yeah. Now it's gonna get tough on the turn with all the different forms of equity and position can have. It might have been a little bit closer, but now it's going to be like the king blocks no bluffs, the 2 blocks the value. He just got his value just got removed. Veskrensky's going to go big. And this one's going to get
river.
This one's going to get tricky. He's got, oh, he only has 40 seconds, huh? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They're both like no time bank, 25 and 45. So not gonna be wasting that. You see the difference between first and second, what they're playing for. It is on the lower left of your screen. So a decent 34 and 40. It's almost 74,000 difference there between first and second. So a lot of buy-ins. And again, clock is valuable. Clock is low. I think only one time I've seen 0-0s on both players. See it several times, maybe 10%, 15% of the time someone loses their clock.
One thing I've noticed so far is that they've only limped the bottoms of their ranges. So keep an eye on that. We'll see. I think one thing we noticed with the younger kind of like really good aggressive online guys is they're not shy of taking like extremely exploitative strategies where, like, you know, what we're seeing now is that they've just, the first limps of the match were just bottom range limps. Interesting here. Another shot for ElkY to win a giant pot where in position kind of has like mandatory continues, and he's made, and it's a interesting check there. I wonder if Maxine is going to take the bait or if he's just going to take a free one with the clubs. You know, if we were being aware, this now makes a lot of more sense to check and let him bluff.
Right.
Now that the king is a straight, right? Or make a tiny block. But I think that Maxime can wait for a hand that has a heart in it at least, to bluff with. So I would, yeah. Interesting turn check from ElkY where we have a lot of mandatory continues as the in-position player regardless. Now we see bottom range raising. and with that small ante, kind of a defender we usually see in BB ante, but not in this format.
All right, I'm going to draw for the winner for the $100 ticket. Give you guys last chance to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. At 250, I'll click it. We're at 230, 2,000. Peaked that today. Big show for non-WSOP. Everyone tuning in. We got a lot of announcements coming up on the GG Million. It's going to be some big changes coming up as well. Just exciting things happening in the new year. So a lot going on. Definitely, I don't know the other tournaments really that are even, I mean, there's nowhere else. I think the biggest prizes, biggest names. This is always fun. It's enjoy to do it. And again, Nick and I haven't really got to know each other, so appreciate you coming on and love to have you on my podcast. I mentioned that before the show, and always good to pick your brain, man. It's pretty impressive to see. We started around the same time, to see how much success and effort and you've put into your game and how it's gone. It seems like you got a good thing going, and you play maybe less volume now, but more quality over quantity. Seems like a nice way to do it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'd be happy to come on the podcast anytime. Yeah, I mean, the way the schedule is, they kind of don't give us a choice. It's kind of like quality over quantity, because the stakes have just gotten huge, and you go away for 2 or 3 weeks or a month and play every day, and then you get 2 weeks to 6 weeks off and do it again. Typically the break is rare. It's not usually that long, so, and it's far away. Here we're seeing the first kind of big c-bet of the match. Interesting to kind of track that stuff, where we might see a lot of small betting from typical opponents. We'll see if Maxime wants to take a hand that has a 4 that can rep some straights and a spade that can rep some flushes and barrel the turn with no equity, or if he's just going to slow down and maybe pick it back up on the river versus check, which obviously is not going to work in this case. But it would be quite reasonable for him to, try to target on the check line, try to target some 2x and 5x. But yeah, that one, Michaelis didn't give him the opportunity to bluff that one.
You think it would be better to check call there with that hand, with the king of spades and the king of spades?
He's probably just going to do both. I don't think there's a meaningful difference between either one.
Right. 6 million, 10.8. So less than 2 to 1. Again, not really separation at the moment, and blinds are big and shot clocks are low. This has the makings for collisions at this point. 8-9, a6, suited a6 with a strong middle pair. Not best kicker, middle pair. Jack 6 deuce 2 spades. Yeah. No player with the spade.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would think that you would have like 8-9 with 1 spade, or 8-9 of diamonds in this one, and now he's probably going to feel like it's almost mandatory to hammer the turn and target this 6x and some 2x of diamonds, whatever the case may be, or even just naked backdoors, but he does check. That's another smart, kind of these like really aggressive flop check raise guys. One of the great adjustments they make is they check raise the flop a little bit too much, and then they check the turn, and then they pick it back up on some rivers. Here it does seem like a hand, like he has got no diamonds, no spades, on blocking all the floats, that he could pick it back up again, but he just decided he just check raised the flop and completely shut it down. So he might be working with some pretty in-depth reads on Michaelis's game, in terms of just thinking that maybe he's a little bit too tight to continue flops, and then he doesn't have to go after him as much on turns. We've seen him have some turn barrel opportunities, or even river raise opportunities, where Michaelis did have value or continues, and Maxime just like gave up right away correctly. So these are all the kind of things that I'm noticing right off the bat the first time I watch these guys play, where again, it seems like Maxime just has like an incredibly good feel for what's going on. Because, in a vacuum, I could have seen him kind of having opportunities to like blast off into some tighter ranges.
Both players with 12 and 11 seconds on the shot clock. This is definitely rare. See it this low.
They're playing speed chess. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's really difficult, especially if there happens to be like a big river pot, and somebody has no time to make the decision.
Yeah, they're both playing a little quicker. Maybe aware of this now, but we'll see if again. I think one time saw this but it makes. Zero shot clock is tough. It is stressful, and it is intense, and they're playing for a lot of money here, over 70,000 between first and second. So someone asked about deals. No deal making on GG Millions. Jack 6, King Jack, both players with the heart. Jack 6 has outflopped King Jack. $250. All right, we hit it. I'm pulling the winner right now. Appreciate everyone being here. Thank you guys so much. Apologize for a bit of the spam. I know we say put it in. Can just do it once. It does qualify you, but we're happy to give away tickets here. Gave one on my Twitter. I'm gonna pick someone randomly. It doesn't say it in the wording there, but I'll give 50 of my cash on that. So that is the picture with Nick on my Twitter. And Nick, I mean, any takeaways before? I mean, this could be over obviously in any moment. What would be sort of a standout from anything surprise you today? Anything you thought was interesting? What would be sort of your key takeaway or two?
I think that it's clear that there's a high level of exploitative thinking going on at these final tables, in terms of like we saw some big folds, that where they're getting a really good price. So they're kind of, I think all of these players are doing a good job of really kind of having a good fundamental baseline to operate from. But then when they got in some big pots, they were really doing a good job of working backwards and asking themselves like, what does this guy have to do to really have the bluff here? And do I need to pay him? And then some interesting choices with some alternative lines, and definitely the three betting strategies where they've figured out that they probably want to increase the frequency and turn the size down a little bit, and then that makes them a little bit more money. I think that's that's also in line with some exploitative thinking. So,
oh, 3, 2, 1, down to 2 seconds, hits the king, uses the time bank, gets the card. What a 2 seconds to 5 seconds. I mean, we are taking this to the absolute wire. 3 or 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Both players have a combined 5 seconds. That's for sure a record. And there it is. King Jack, Jack 10. King Jack going to get an important river. He probably just can't believe that river came and that connected, even had a heart in there. So here we go. 3 seconds, 2 seconds. What an exciting finish here. 80K, 160K. The hands now working in the upper left. You can see in 11 hands, blinds will go up. We are playing over 3 hours on the dot of poker today. So we have got for sure some great hands, and there'll be some nice analysis. GTO Lab, I know you say don't do everyone, but you guys usually do some reviews and look at hands from these GGMillions, which is very cool. Usually that's Wednesday, and that's on your YouTube channel, correct? GTO Labs. People can follow there.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're doing one this week, but we will have them coming out in the future, and they'll be on the site. And I think this one probably warrants some kind of review because there is a lot of great stuff in this one. Like I'm just curious myself about some of the things we saw in terms of, like I said, the alternative strategies, just difficult spots. Some of those difficult spots, but blind versus blind especially. These guys definitely didn't have it easy today. I don't think anyone involved had like an easy day. The one spot that Alexander took with the Jack 9 of hearts got rebluffed. So yeah, that was it's pretty funny. He just got no spots, took one, and then just had the King Jack of diamonds just pounce on it right away, which was again just like super sharp type of stuff. So here, let's see, we've got limp, ISO call, I believe, C-bet.
This time bank stuff's fascinating me. 2 seconds, 1 second. I mean, you're never going to see that again. You'll never see. That's crazy.
Nope. And you're going to have, I mean, that's a testament to that they have not had an easy day in the streets, right?
Yeah, a lot of thinking, a lot of reason why we're at 3 hour mark, because there's been a lot of clock, right, burned on hands and players. You like the chess clock versus the other way?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good. I think that the only problem with the chess clock is having that amount of time could open the door for some nefarious activity. That's the only thing I've ever had against the chess clock.
Well, I'll tell you right now,
8 minutes.
They got 1 second, 1 second total between the two. No clock for Michaelitis. He officially is on 0. So this is anything goes now. This is again, we're coming to a head here.
This pot is huge and so important for the match. And when you have this low SPR and you're flopping a pair with that kind of big blind sort of offsuit heavy bluff range, whenever you connect and at this SPR, you're going to end up being quite aggressive. And yeah, unfortunately, this one was kind of like Maxime got lucky to take the lead, and now he's gonna have he's not. I don't think it's that hard of a decision here. Now, this guy.
Wow.
Go. Okay, so they both had 1 second to make a decision, and they both made the most aggressive possible decision they could. That one, I think Maxime will want to have back. It seems very difficult. I guess, like, I think the queen of spades too would be like heavy in the bluff line. Yeah, that's a rough one. I think that's a tough spot. I would have, if you have time, I think it's difficult because you obviously have the 5 with the spade, but you know, offsuit stuff that's tends to maybe something like king queen off, queen jack off on that flop. That's where he's going to come pull a lot of those bluffs from.
Yeah,
that was a tricky one.
Well, officially they're about dead even, and they have no shot clock. So you have got this wide open, too close to call, and it is literally coming down to the wire here. 6-7 jack deuce, not much here, just a 7 paired there, middle pair for Michaelitis. Hard to make a pair in No Limit Texas Hold'em. You play other games, Nick, or you're pretty much just No Limit? Do you do
I'm just no.
One trick pony. Do it well. 38 million live. Well, what I mean, online over the years, hard to even estimate. There's so many different sites back in the days and earnings, but pretty crazy to think that 50 million now, like 10, 20 years ago, thinking about that number, but people have, you know, crossing the $50 million earning live, and pretty crazy. This 500K is going to be nice payouts. The 50 million guaranteed, that 25K will be nice too. I mean, numbers are moving around. Not hard to think someone will cross 100 million not too long.
Yes, sir. They're having some. I mean, I think last year I played a few. There was like, you know, some of these even like the 100Ks are like 5 million per first. Or this is an interesting combo to 3-bet at this depth, just because of like exactly what's going to happen. It gets really tricky. I think I would tend to stay a little bit more polar in that 3-bet. But yeah, he seems to be willing to add linearity everywhere and just figure it out after, which is an interesting and difficult way to play poker.
Tens have, sorry, you were saying they got the lead right now. Jack Queen, not a great looking board there. We were mentioning what you said last year. You were there. You had a thought.
Oh yeah, last year I was just saying how big these things get. Like there's like 200K tournaments that are like 7-8 million for first. There's now this is going to be a call and probably a huge shifting moment. Yeah. And like 100Ks, we're getting 5 million for first. You know, stuff when we started playing high rollers, you'd never think it got to this point, and just the sheer volume of those as well. So yeah, winning, you know, having 15, 20, 25 million by 2018, 30 million by 2018, that was quite an accomplishment. And now it's like, it's almost like over the last 6 years, it's no matter what you're playing, you're going to amass a lot of cash just because it's just massive stakes.
For sure. Well, zero's on the clock. We have 0-0. Michaelitis now has emerged.
And you're starting to see
favorite.
I think it's affecting the play a little bit, to be honest with you. Like he just folded a gut shot, I think. He had 5-3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think like since the decisions have become incredibly rushed, we've seen some bad decisions in the marginal, some bad marginal decisions like in the wrong direction, in my opinion. But it's probably really difficult to do what they're doing right now. And every spot like this where you have a little bit of equity in the back door, like he's got a call now. Oh, they added, but why did he fold? Like it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's getting tough with no time here.
Ooh, this two big
this
hands.
One's gonna go.
Yeah, all in and gonna call. He's gonna call King 7 suited, Ace 9 for his third title. Can Michaelitis hold? King and an ace arrive. Needs help though. King or 7 on the river, or else we will see a 3-time champion and our chip leader to start will get second. That is it. That is a win for Michaelitis. What a comeback. Heads up. There he is. gets it done. ElkY, lucky indeed, played great, ran it, kind of was the massive leader four-handed, and then ended up getting short and come back. So the whole, you kind of broke it down already. A wild day. You saw a lot, ton of takeaway, ton of breakdown. And again, Nick, thank you so much for the time. Good luck.
Yeah, of course.
Bahamas, man. WSOP, you'll be there playing the 500K. Triton, WSOP, the whole deal, 25K, 50 mil. I'll be down there as well. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And Nick, where can people, what's the best way they can keep up with you personally? GTO Lab, of course. I know that's something you're pretty endeared to it, but do you do any posting personally anywhere for yourself?
I'm not too much on social media. I think, you know, when we do stuff on GTO Lab, with my involvement, it'll be on our website, gtolab.com. It'll be on our YouTube channel. John's running a great podcast, the GTO Lab podcast. So all that stuff. Yeah, for me, I stay out of the social media streets. I'll leave that to you guys. But I'd be happy to do your podcast anytime you want. Just hit me up. Yeah, it was great. Love this stuff. I mean, I would have done it by myself anyway, and I'll probably go check out a bunch of these hands because these guys were playing sick. That was awesome to watch.
It was. And if we can just flash one more time the betting odds, if you see, I think they just put it up and we might have missed it, but we can go ahead and get it back there. ElkY 14.08 to 1, so a nice return. He started in 8th, the 8-play stack, one of the longer shots that has won in a while that I can remember. You can see the favorite got second, 3.62. Sergio also made a good push, and a look at how it all played out there with the payout. So again, that'll be that. There is no GGMillion next week. We will be back the following week. And again, so much going on, so much to talk about. And we'll have another great guest. And of course, almost a guarantee, the biggest names in the game playing every week, battling for the massive prizes. And of course, the glory of the GGMillion title, very prestigious. So again, Nick, thank you so much. Cheers, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate the time. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you.